Hello everybody and welcome to the RaceRoom Spa 2.4 hours. This is one of the most historic race circuits in the world. It's around the time of year where everybody is visiting the Ardennes Mountains for some GT3 racing around here. Opened in the 1920s, this circuit may have lost some of its corners down the years, but it certainly hasn't lost any of its character. It is still a wonderful race circuit to go racing and a big challenge for all of our drivers today. We've assembled some of RaceRoom's very best for yet another Spa 2.4 hours here tonight. My name is Ewan O'Leary. I'm alongside Cam Roger here tonight for the broadcast. And Cam, it's great to go GT racing at Spa once again. It's the right time of year, late summertime, and it only means one thing. Everybody will be very accustomed to this feeling of lining up on the grid for 2.4 hours of racing at this wonderful circuit.
Yeah, especially if you're one of these guys who likes playing on all of the sims. You've got plenty of opportunities to get laps on GT3 cars on this circuit, and safe to say it is one of the best combinations in the world. It just seems to fit, and that is why we keep coming back year after year. It's an amazing circuit, an amazing spec car to come racing as well. So yeah, looking forward to a great event today.
We certainly are. As you can see, the format very simple, and as we've seen throughout the other two 2.4 hour races so far this season, 20 minutes for qualifying and then a 2.4 hour race, translating to about 2 hours and 24 minutes in real time. We'll be bringing that qualifying session to you in a few moments' time. We'll jump straight into the race after that. We've got some big names, as I mentioned, as well on the grid here today, like Ilya Drovosekov, who has the highest rating of all of the 33 drivers lining up on the grid. Sebastian Rear, the Daytona 2.4 hour winner from earlier on this year, he's lining up as well on the grid here for this one. So we've got a very well assembled grid indeed here for this race, and we're getting some familiar names this season with the 2.4 hours, with those who are doing very well indeed. Drovosekov, of course, winning, I think, won 3 races in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship earlier on this year for Season 1. He's performed well in the special events so far as well. And he'll be expected to be towards the front, as well as the Daytona 2.4 hour winner as well. But there's plenty of names to choose from further down the list.
Yeah, there certainly is. I think this one's pretty open. It's a very tough circuit. It's going to be certainly one that you've got to keep an eye on certain corners around here. Very easy to make a mistake, a very fast track as well. So if you go off, you're going to be having a big accident. So yeah, those drivers who can get that consistency down is certainly going to be ones looking to be fighting towards the end of this race. And of course, being 2.4 hours on your own, especially in this heat that we have in Europe at this moment in time, it's going to be very difficult for some of these drivers.
It is going to be quite a long race, maybe longer than normal, but that is due to the time of year, I suppose, and the conditions we're seeing at the moment. Also, with regards to the cars as well, of course, it's GT3s, but pretty much anything is permitted in terms of those GT3s. There's plenty to choose from, and I'm glad to say, Cam, we've had plenty of different drivers selecting different cars. We, in other sims particularly, see a lot of almost single-make GT3 races because of the way that the selection works and the BOP, but however, RaceRoom has got this down very well at the moment, and there's a lot of cars in contention of winning this race.
Yeah, you're right. There's about 10, 11 GT3 cars to choose from. And we're seeing that there's a few BOP adjusts. Some cars have maybe 1 or 2% reduced in their power. And then some cars even, including the 488 GT3 Ferrari, having 30 kilos of ballast as well. Some other cars in there having some ballast as well, trying to make it as fair as possible. And the good thing that you see generally in these RaceRoom events is that it is fairly consistent, and you can see different cars at all different tracks being consistently towards the top as well. As you're getting Drovosekov here going purple in the first 2 sectors. He's in the Callaway Corvette, and you will see towards the front there is actually a few of them, as that car is fairly competitive, especially around a track like this, due to, I believe, the top speed that it has. But out to the final corner, this is going to be a rough benchmark on the lap times that we're going to see.
Yeah, we saw roughly 2:16s be the best in practice, and we're not quite there yet. 2:17 for the moment for Drovosekov, who slides his way into La Source on that second attempt and immediately goes back to the pit lane, realising that that is not going to be any better for him, I'm afraid, and he's struggling on the rear once again there. 2% has been taken off this car's power, by the way, in terms of the restrictor, and been given 10 kilograms of ballast. Only the McLarens and the Porsches have been allowed to keep their full power for this race. The other manufacturers have either 1 or 2% off, and there's a variation of weight ballast as well. The Ferrari being the heaviest car in terms of ballast, that's 30 kilograms added to that car. That's a rough overview of the BOP, but it's very, very close and well balanced, I'm glad to say, at the moment. This is Latkovsky going over the line right now, the Macedonian going into that top position. A 2:16.7, the first 16 we've seen so far today, but we're still expecting the likes of Meyer and Drovasikov to go a little bit quicker because they were ever so slightly quicker in practice. I think it was Meyer who actually ended up at the top of the timesheets in practice.
It certainly was, and he had a strong end to the RaceRoom Ranked Championship as well, doing a good performance in that final round of Watkins Glen. So certainly a few drivers in the vicinity to be batting for this, as we're seeing they're massively wide there out of Puon, and you're going to be seeing that a few times, drivers making mistakes and then having to go back to the pit. And even in a 20-minute session with such a long lap around here, you don't actually get many opportunities.
No, it is a bit of a challenge. 20 minutes worth of qualifying does help you out a little bit, but even so, it takes a very long time to get back around again, as Lapanik just goes for a big slide around Bruxelles there and has to abandon that lap. This is Grot of Norway, in the Bentley at the moment. Just being tailed by one of the Corvettes. Over a second adrift at this stage, and we are going to see some fairly large gaps between the front and the back, you would imagine, due to the difficulty and particularly length of this circuit. Over 7 kilometres around here is quite a long way, and so we may well see some quite big gaps between these drivers by the end. But let's wait and see, really. Still 13 minutes to go, so plenty of time left here in qualifying. But you mentioned that RaceRoom Ranked Championship briefly there, Cam. Just want to circle back to that a little bit because it's the last broadcast that we were on here at RaceRoom anyway, and we had some big surprises at the final round. I know Zach jumped in, helped out a little bit alongside you for that final round, and it was well worth him coming along to, because it was a big surprise, I think we'd say.
Yes, certainly was. I mean, we saw drivers literally fighting for centimetres across the line to decide championships and positions therefore as well. So just amazing how close that season was in general. And even though it was only a 4-race championship, it just had all the action that we wanted. And it's it's great to see that was so successful and gave us just an amazing display of what racing really can be, especially in the GT3 category, where you have all these cars fighting so close together. It's just amazing.
It absolutely was, and we can say as well that there'll be an announcement about Season 2 coming up very soon, so keep your eye on the official RaceRoom Discord. If you're not already in there, then make sure you join, and keep an eye on the Discord, the social media, etc., because there'll be an official announcement with all the more finer details coming up very soon. Here is Marvin Mackenberg in 6th position at the moment, just 3/4 of a second behind, and just in front of his brother. A bit of a rivalry there, but 0.04 of a second between the two Germans at the moment. In the Bentley, it's Latkovsky at the moment who's at the front in the McLaren, and it's somewhat surprising, the next McLaren being a second and a half behind and being driven by Sebastian Rear as well. So Latkovsky has done a really good job with that car, considering the fact that Rear is not a bad driver at all, and he's beating him at the moment by 1.5 seconds, which is an awful lot indeed, and possibly, some would argue, an unfavourable car here.
Yeah, it might just be, but Latkovsky, he's always towards the front when we're seeing these RaceRoom races, always putting in some good performances, and certainly a driver who can get the best out of it, which just shows you that even if it's not a favourable car, apparently, if you're a good driver and you can get the most out of it, you can really make things work. But of course, the long runs are going to be the important part here, with us needing 2 pit stops to get to the end of the 2.4 hours, as well as Drovasekov, though, goes towards the front as Mackenberg now jumps up into 5th place as well.
Absolutely. Let's not forget that Latkovsky did win the Bathurst 2 hour, but it's Drovasekov at the moment beating him in this session. Sven Mackenberg makes his way towards the final chicane right now. He did drop quite a lot of time in that middle sector. The Bentley held its own around the straight parts at the first part of the lap, but through the mid part it did struggle, and then at the end again, when there's a little bit more power needed, stepped on it once more and does improve ever so slightly to 5th position, and then immediately drops it out of La Source and straight into the wall. These guys do have traction control, of course, but it will not save you from everything, as Mackenberg just found out there. Here is Kaspering making his way up the hill now in the Ferrari, the heaviest car in terms of ballast. And you can see there as well the cones on the left-hand side, just for the endurance pit lane. It's always a bit of a precarious exit. Kaspering negotiating that and already losing half a second in that opening sector. As I mentioned earlier on, this is such a vast circuit, a long circuit, that you are going to lose quite a lot of time throughout a lap, and even losing half a second in the first sector is a decent job for Kaspering, because if he even continues on at that rate, he will still improve by a good 2 or 3 positions.
I wonder if that's just something to do with the Ferrari and the weight potentially, because Sector 1 is pretty much just turn 1. So yeah, I wonder if that's just not favourable in a straight line. Maybe through the corners it can make some of that back up, but for sure the straight line speed around here is very crucial. There's obviously the 2 really long straights coming up through Eau Rouge and Radion up to Les Combes, but then also the back straight up through Blanchimont into the final chicane as well, into the bus stop. So certainly the straight line speed around here is very important. However, this middle sector is very fast. You've got these long corners where you need that stability, you need that confidence in the car, and maybe that is what Kaspering has there in this Ferrari, going a little bit wider, touching the gravel as you come through sector 2. Is he going to still be down? Yeah, 1.5 seconds now, so this is not going to be potentially an improvement.
No, it's looking unlikely. A whole second lost through that long middle sector, and there's a yellow flag somewhere here in the final sector as well. Let's see, is it at Blanchimont? I guess that's the most obvious place, but it certainly doesn't look like it. Somebody off the road somewhere, but it's not going to affect Kaspering by the looks of things. He's going to come into the final chicane and exit absolutely fine and go up towards the line, but it would do well to improve from this point over the line, and it's not an improvement. 1.8 seconds adrift from Drobosekov at the moment, and he goes straight back to the pit lanes. We look at Alessandro Botti now, from one of the drivers from the RaceRoom Rank Championship as well, of course, was involved in that. Doesn't need too much of an improvement to get past both of the Mackenberg brothers at the moment, who are in 5th and 6th position, but there's still a little bit of time left in this qualifying session, still over 7 minutes. However, it seems like a lot, but it really isn't at a circuit like Spa. You do have to really think about it, because realistically, if you're leaving the pit lane right now, you're only going to get 2 flying laps, really, so it's not as much as you think.
Yeah, that's the important point as well in RaceRoom, of course. We like to mention this every time, because it's a little bit different to some places where the session hits 0. That is it. Session is done. So always that is Botti losing the rear end there, and unfortunately going to be almost making contact with the next Corvette, and then almost again with the second Corvette. I think a Zabdir coming past as well. That wasn't the nicest of slides and rejoins there from Botti, who unfortunately has to abandon his lap. But as we were saying, that when the session gets to 0, that is it. So you need to have left the pit lane with about 4 minutes and maybe 40 seconds at the absolute latest to get your lap in.
Yeah, it is a very harsh cut-off point, and you can't continue on anymore once that clock hits 0. So it just helps us to kind of schedule things a bit easier, I suppose, as well. But this is Grotje at the moment in the 10th position, going fastest in Sector 1. However, I don't want to preempt things here, Cam, and I would be pleasantly surprised to see him purple in Sector 2 as well. However, I just think that Bentley has really taken off rocket-like on the straight there, on the Camel Straight, and is going to struggle a bit through this middle sector.
We will see, because this middle sector is about 1 minute and 5 seconds long, so that's a long time compared. Still a personal best, but as you say, about a second down in comparison to that purple first sector. You are right, and of course, with that first sector literally being 1 corner, you will see the drivers being so close, because of course there's not much variation. However, in that middle sector, that is really where A, the car, but also B, the driver can really make a huge difference as well. This final sector is pretty much just this bus stop, so you generally see the close times. It's all about that middle sector around this track, but let's see what time he can do. Can he improve overall compared to his own position? 10th place at this moment in time, jumps up 1 place into 9th.
Does indeed. And he got quite a big improvement on his lap there, so it might be a bit disappointing to only gain 1 place, but either way, can't do anything about that. Here's Lapanik just behind him now in that 11th place, just running as wide as possible through Malmedy there, using that little bit of tarmac you have on the left-hand side there to just extend out a little bit. Now it's just going to try and tuck in through this middle sector, open up the no-name corner as much as possible, and then run as wide as possible as you can here. Make sure those left-hand tyres, though, don't get onto the AstroTurf on the outside. This is Puon, where there's maximum commitment needed. Don't really need too much of the curve on the left-hand side, but then you do try and get on the power as early as possible and really maximise this on the exit into the Vanya chicane, pit path, campus chicane, whatever you want to call it. Take your pick. Just try and stay tight through the right-handers to open out this left-hander as much as possible and have a smooth run through there into Stavolo now, where you're going to use all of the exit tarmac, and there it is on the left-hand side to really open up Paul Frere and then run out wide. This circuit really is about flow and about one corner going into the next, opening or maybe compromising one corner to open up the next. There really is a rhythm to this circuit, especially in the middle sector.
Yeah, I think that's why it's a driver favourite as well. It's, of course, we have, the bus stop chicane, we have turn one, but even, corners like Les Commes, maybe a chicane, but it's a very fast-flowing chicane. You really need to keep the momentum going through there. It's not a very stop-start circuit, apart from this final chicane, which you have to get right because you can easily lose time. It's very important. But what can Lapanik do now towards the line? 11th place currently. Is there going to be further improvements across the line up towards 9th place? Just a couple of tenths quicker, but that could be all important to keep inside the top 10.
It could well be. So Ilya Drobosakov has currently got the best time, but Nikola Latkovsky is out there at the moment and loses a second in that middle sector, but will have one more go here. This is going to be an absolutely enthralling lap to watch with the McLaren, because Latkovsky is going to throw everything at this, all in the name of gaining 0.2 of a second and getting pole position for the Spa 2.4 hour today. 3 minutes left, one lap basically for Latkovsky to throw everything at this, and you can be absolutely sure he is going to. I hope he gets through this entire middle sector, and I hope we get to see just the amount of commitment he is going to show us here.
Let's see how this one goes indeed. Up towards Eau Rouge and Radion, of course, flat out, even in GT3 cars, all over that inside curb and the exit one as well, taking the straightest line possible, keeping that momentum going all the way up the hill. And let's just see how this is going to be in that first sector. Is the McLaren... does the McLaren have anything in terms of top speed, or is it all in that middle sector? It does. It's purple in that first sector by almost a tenth as well. That is a huge turn one from Latkovsky.
Yeah, because as you say, the rest of the sector not really much to do as a driver. Gets onto the gravel on the outside at Malmedy. He's gone too wide there. That is going to be it for Latkovsky. There are no mistakes that can be made around Spa, even in its modern day form, with the tarmac all around the outside of the circuit, running slightly too wide at Malmedy, and your lap will be over. Latkovsky's dream of pole position are over.
Mackenberg, though, doing purple in that first sector as well, but as we know, that Bentley may be pulling along. Let's see what it's like coming out onto the back straight, where we go through sector 2, personal best in the middle sector, but that's not going to be enough to challenge the top few at least. And look at all the drivers with the green icons. They're all in the pit lane, and all those places are pretty much sorted for now. Just 1.5 minutes to go, and as we said, that means you need to have your lap done, so you already need to be halfway around the lap.
You do indeed. We are it's going to be quite close, but we're going to see Kunz get this lap time in actually, so that's going to be good news for the German. 4 Germans, by the way, in the top 6. Very good showing there from the nation just I was about to say across the road, but that's not really work for countries, does it? But anyway, you know what I mean. Up to 6th place, Mackenberg just going to join them as well in 7th position. As you say, though, a lot of people in the pit lane right now. I think it speaks to the length of the circuit and just how difficult it is to get around again and start a final lap here, because even with 3 minutes to go, 4 minutes to go, your session could be over already. Kunz has done a very good middle sector there, and he could well get himself onto the front 2 rows here. If this all goes to plan in the bus stop chicane, there's not much to do until then. Just negotiate Blanchimont with minimal problems, and in qualifying low fuel and in modern day GT3, it's no problem at all. Down into that famous final chicane where we're going to see so much action throughout the race. Just trying to get the best run possible on this short dash to the checkered flag and to the line for the final time. It's going to be over the line for Kunz, just behind our graphic. I don't think he's in. Oh, he has improved. There it is. He moves up to 4th place. It's a very nice qualifying indeed from him, but not as good as the qualifying from Ilya Drovosikov, who takes the pole in the Corvette. Latkovsky maybe could have gotten that pole with that final lap, but in the end, he couldn't complete the lap. Meyer and Kunz will be on that row behind, with another old German row of Alex Mosin and Sven Mackenberg in that 3rd position. His brother Marvin will be on the row behind with Kilian Hood. And then it's going to be Alessandro Botti and Marius Zabdir rounding out your top 10, Cam. But that was a good qualifying session, especially for Drovosikov, who's now going to try and avenge the Bathurst 2-hour defeat where he finished behind Latkovsky and hope to reverse that result.
Yeah, they had a nice battle there in that day. Maybe not in terms of on track, but in terms of the lap times as well, just pushing each other. But sometimes pole position around here is not always the best, such as the long run up the hill towards Les Combes on that first lap. We know the slipstream is going to be very important, and we could see, multiple cars wide coming up to the braking zone there. So it's going to be very important. And of course, these things are standing start as well. So a bit of driver skill to get off the line in these pretty tricky cars.
They are tricky to get off the line. They're not particularly accustomed to it. And so that does make life a bit tricky. But there are all the drivers we're showing you for the first time tonight. All the drivers who are on show here for this race. And we're getting towards the grid now. Just less than a minute for these guys to get set up. And it's going to be a very interesting one indeed. 2.4 hours GT3 racing. And we're going to see Drovosikov and Latkovsky. I have a feeling these two aren't going to be separated by much throughout the entire day.
I don't think so either. The pit stop timings are going to be very important indeed. Obviously, 2.4 hours means with these cars doing roughly an hour per stint, your second pit stop isn't going to be a full tank of fuel. And therefore, if you can go longer and then make your final pit stop even shorter, take less fuel, have less stationary time in the pit lane, then you're going to gain a lot from that. So let's look out for some fuel tactics going along the way as well.
Absolutely. Strategical intrigue will be something to watch throughout the day. But it's going to be Ilya Drovosikov versus Nikola Latkovsky on that front row here on the grid. The lights will be on and these revs will be rising for the Spark 2.4 hour here on RaceRoom. Drovosikov looking to get to that inside as quickly as possible and defend this lead. We're underway, but it's a storming start from the McLaren on the inside. Latkovsky in front before they even get to the corner, although it's going to be late braking from Drovosikov on a wide line as he tries to make his way through. It's a decent stop from Meyer, who holds on to 3rd place. Kunz will be in 4th, although he's battling with Hood there in the McLaren, who's had a fantastic start, and he looks like he might be the one to move up to 4th, and he does indeed. They single file their way through as they go up the hill through Eau Rouge and over the top. And Radion don't really want to go side by side through there as the 2 Audis in the background just demonstrating, and now they all fan out and defend. Latkovsky on the defensive from Drovosikov in the lead of this race. Around the outside for the Corvette, the two make contact. Drovosikov tries to muscle his way in, and he has done it to Les Combes. He retakes the lead after losing it on the start.
Which just shows you how important that slipstream is coming up towards Les Combes. And let's see how this one continues, how this battle continues for all these drivers as they're trying to get themselves into a great place to work their way forward in this race. And as you say there, Drovosikov being so aggressive to get that place back because he knows it's going to be important with the track position around here. Even though you can obviously overtake, it's always important to control the race from the front and the speed. And of course, Meyer having a great start as well. So it looks like the Mackenberg brothers just dropping down a couple of places here and there. So yeah, it's going to be a good fight with these drivers.
It is side by side a bit further behind between Kulas and Lapenik as Meyer now goes on the attack from Latkovsky. Here he goes round the outside of the right-hander at the campus chicane. What a move that was. You don't see that very often at all as the outside switches to the inside for the BMW driver and he makes his way up to second. For whatever reason, Latkovsky is not getting off to a flying start here.
And I wonder if that is something to do with just not getting up to speed straight away mentally compared to the qualifying fuel that they would have just been on, or if it is potentially to do with that McLaren as well. Starting quick in qualifying, let's see how that translates to this race pace. And of course, the battles behind are looking pretty close as well. As we come towards the top 5 there, Kunz was getting very close, but a little bit further back here, got Kulas is going to be having to dive down the inside. Yeah, just thinking about it, sort of half-heartedly on the inside there, side by side though, through that first apex, getting up to 11th momentarily, but then dropping back down.
A bit of a car park going on as well into the bus stop chicane with our end, and Castanera, Kasbrink as well, who are all stacking their way through at the bus stop. But they make their way through. Everybody makes their way over the first lap with more or less without problems, other than the 34th placed driver Daniel Hebel, who's dropped off the back of the field here early on. He has clearly had some problems in that opening lap, but other than that, it's been very clean and very good racing indeed as they go over Arouge and Radion once again up the hill on the Kemmel Straight. Slipstream going to be a big factor, and it is already being so for Lapkowski, who's on the outside line, just trying to make his way through on Mayo at the moment, but not able to. There he is. He's very quick on the straight in that McLaren, but through the middle sector, for whatever reason, really lost out last lap. I'm not entirely sure why.
Yeah, let's see if that is a continuing trend. Maybe that is something to to look out for. And that number 58 McLaren there working his way around in this third place, because if that is a continuation throughout the race, that's going to be difficult for him to hold on and then get that slipstream back, as all the drivers are using all of that track limits, but they do have to be careful not to go too wide. And they'll obviously get incident points and therefore could be getting penalties later on in the race. Track limits is always a huge factor around this track, such is the nature of all the tarmac runoff that we have nowadays, at least in this version. Of course, in real life they've been adding gravel back in here and there to allow motorbikes racing, but in the version that we've got here, there's certainly a lot of tarmac that you can use and abuse if you choose to do so. It's a little bit further back, getting side-by-side battles now for 14th place. Castanera going a little bit too wide though, and not being able to get that pace from the road.
Arendt and Castanera with the two going side by, or at least the first two to go side by side up the hill at Eau Rouge the first time around. So that was scary, and the two of them made it through, thankfully. But it could have been a whole lot worse, unfortunately for them. They've made it through though, and it certainly does seem to be a recurring theme for Cody Nikola Lakovsky to be losing that bit of time in the middle sector, because now nearly 2 seconds adrift here at this stage. Castanera just looking to the outside of our end and forces a bit of a mistake from the Austrian, who'll go round the outside through the final corner. Thought he would just try and get the better run onto the straight, but he wasn't waiting around at all there. He wanted to seize the opportunity while he had one, and he has done. There it is into La Source. He's going to have to go a bit defensive again from his fellow Audi driver. However, he makes his way up to 13th, but he's going to employ the help of Sebastian Rear as well to keep Arend at bay.
And I think Sebastian is just about going to be able to make that side-by-side as we come down the hill towards Eau Rouge, and he has in that McLaren up there in towards 14th place. Ren going down a couple of places in a couple of corners, but how is that Audi going to be in that slipstream coming all the way back up the hill once again towards Lake Com? This is going to be something that you're going to see some drivers switching around here and there as Ray looking towards the inside just a little bit. Lakovsky goes down to 4th place now, losing further places and really just dropping off Mayer there throughout that lap as Hoyt there goes up into 3rd place.
Yeah, what is happening here to the pole sitter for a while, provisionally, and then Derbyshakov obviously knocked him off his perch. Race leader very briefly in this race. What is happening though? There's a big slide for Hoot there in the McLaren, the slightly older generation car, just in front. The newer one in front of the old one. Just getting a little bit out of shape through No Name Corner, but gets back going again, and Kunz now is going to fancy his chances on both of these cars, really. Much like his fellow BMW Meyer did into this chicane, he's going to do it as well. Through the right-handed part, he needs to get alongside for the left-handed bit. He's on the inside and kicks up a little bit of grass in doing so, and he makes his way through. Another very impressive move indeed. I don't know what it is about the BMWs and being able to do that, but nobody else seems to be able to.
Yeah, that is looking very strong for an overtaking corner, at least around the outside of Lakovsky, and he drops out another place. Remember, this guy was up in 1st place on the opening lap and is now down to 5th, over 4 seconds off the lead already. And let's see how that one continues for him, because at the moment it's just a downward spiral, and that could be not good as the race progresses. Obviously winning the Bathurst race a bit later. But in the background, actually, Bottin and Mosen side by side. Mosen is going to get that position, but he's gone too deep and he's going to lose it back again as Mackenberg, I think, is going to be coming side by side with him on the exit. Not quite.
Way too wide from Mosen there, and Mackenberg is going to fancy his chances now. although he might not want to move into La Source because it does hurt you all the way up the hill, and Zabdi is going to try and take advantage of this waiting around. He nearly goes up the inside of Mosin there, and he just about does as Mackenberg gets pushed back. That was great opportunistic driving from Zabdi, as Mackenberg was kind of waiting around for a better chance. Zabdi wanted to seize the opportunity straight away, and certainly did, as we go on board with another Mackenberg brother, Marvin Mackenberg, in 10th place right now. Best seats in the house, arguably, at the moment, because there's 3 cars that may well end up 3 wide in a couple of moments. Here they go up towards Lecombe. Everybody's just going to wait around for the moment, and I just wonder how much of a theme that's going to become throughout the opening portion of this race. We've obviously seen the opening lap skirmishes and a fair amount of overtaking so far, but just how much lifting off and waiting around are we going to see in the first part of the race this time around? We haven't really seen that so far in the Bathurst and Nürburgring races. It's been an all-out brawl from start to finish for the most part, but maybe there'll be a bit more waiting around here, who knows.
I think it's just with how close the drivers are, this is a good opportunity in the race to gain some track position, gain some places, and see where you're going to work out a little bit later on. I don't think anyone is going to be able to save enough to do a one-stop strategy. I think everyone's going to have to make that 2-stop. So that's, that obviously opens the door to some strategic options to work out when you're going to make those pit stops, and really, you could actually push a little bit now, maybe slightly under fuel at the beginning of the race, and get yourself in a good position if you want to try that and get yourself a bit out of sequence with other people. Certainly options that you have in these 2.4-hour races compared to just a standard 2-hour race where it's a little bit more rigid with the strategic options.
Yeah, I really like the idea of a 2-stop race, but also the flexibility as well, because if we went for 3 hours, for example, then it would be much more tricky to do that in terms of, it'd be much less flexible in terms of the strategy. So I do really like this format, and the drivers certainly do as well. Outside line for Mosin this time, and he does pull the car up in time on this occasion. However, Botti fights back on the outside line through the final corner. The two make side-to-side contact, and Zabdi is going to fancy his chances into La Source for the 2nd lap in a row, by the looks of things. Maybe looking to the inside line now, and that Carbon Corvette trying to make his way through, and he's given the room by Mersin, and Zabdi is going to not quite make his way through because that run on the outside line will just swamp him. However, there'll be a big slipstream on the Kemmel Straight, and Zabdi is going to really fancy his chances of making this move finally.
The issue is sometimes you can actually be a bit too close for the slipstream. I wonder if that is going to be it actually, though. Botti's had a really bad run there off the top of Radion, and he's going to be hugely under attack here from Mosin. Zabdi hasn't been able to hold on to that group as they go side by side now towards the braking zone. Botti on the outside, sorry, Mosin on the outside, trying to get all the way around, but not quite able to. Botti holds on there, but this 3 train of the Callaway Corvette are doing such good battle, and Zabdi can't quite find a place to stick his nose on the inside.
He had the line there to maybe get a run, but got too much curb and too much grass, although he still stuck the nose up the inside at Bruxelles, and the two just rub ever so slightly into no-name corners. A long way round there, there's contact, more contact, and they bang again, and he's finally through. Mosin goes backwards, Mackenberg just watches on and waits, really. Zabdi makes his way through. That was a little bit aggressive, but it wouldn't be GT3 racing without a little bit of rubbing here and there.
Yeah, Mosin just getting pushed out the way a little bit, but of course that is not ideal. As Burkhardt there, Dominic Burkhardt, getting a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. Fortunately, we do actually have the GP pits here. We don't have the full endurance, so it's not the massive pain that it would be to do a drive-through on the full pit lane, but at least that is still 30 seconds, 20 seconds to your time that you do not want to be having. But I think Mosin there was the best example of either pass or be passed, but he's actually had a great run there, coming up the straight now towards Blanchimont. He's going to have the inside, but he's actually just managed to not keep hold of that momentum as he comes to Blanchimont now. He's just had to back out of that one, drop in line, but of course he could be 2 places higher, but because he ran wide, he's actually lost a place instead.
Yeah. Burkhardt, by the way, already in that last position, so that might not affect him too much, but speeding in the pit lane is something you'll have to keep an eye on throughout the race. Kunz just on the back of Hoyt at the moment. This McLaren versus BMW battle. 3 different manufacturers on the podium at the moment, so that's good news to see. We've got the Dutchman just trying to hang on for the moment. Kunz has shown some decent pace so far in this race, and we really get a view right here as to whether he really intends to go through right now or whether he intends to stay behind. We're on the Kemmel Straight, and he's got a few corners between the two anyway, so he might not learn much at all. They go up the straight and they're going to stay exactly where they are. Things certainly starting to settle down though. We're nearly 15 minutes into this race now already, and the kind of start of race adrenaline, I guess we could call it, will start to subside by this point.
And also just the gaps in general sort of work themselves out now as Kunz there diving it down the inside, trying to make up this place. Pete on the outside, just holding it all the way round the outside there. That'll give him the inside to this next no-name corner as well. So Kunz not able to get this place, but all over the exit curve, being actually given room there quite generously from Pete there. Could have pushed him out even more. Now side by side down towards Pouon, and he's just going to have to back out of that one. And this battle is certainly raging on there, just sort of dropping away slowly from Meyer ahead. So this is turning into their two-way battle. So really, they can go for this fight because they're in pretty solid positions.
Yeah, they are battling over the last place inside the top three, of course. There's a decent attempt from Kunz there to try and make his way through, but no cigar on that occasion, as it were. And a little bit wide through Stavolo, and he's going to compromise his run all the way up towards the bus stop chicane now, which is a shame. But we haven't seen too much overtaking through there just yet. More of it has come at Lecombe, or indeed down into Bruxelles after Malmedy there. So yeah, it's been a little bit surprising in that aspect. Not much going on going down towards the bus stop chicane, but maybe Kunz will be able to put that right on this occasion. He doesn't look like it for the moment. He shows his nose, but stays behind in fourth place. He's just behind Cody Nikolakowski, still in that fifth place, but from what I can see, Cam, still losing time, basically lap on lap here. I haven't seen a lap yet where he's actually gained on the two leaders, really.
Yeah, it looks like he hasn't quite got that same speed in the race as with qualifying. Of course, the strategic options are there for him, but even being, 8 seconds off the lead now, that is a lot of time to gain back either way, with strategy or not. Even if you try and do a shorter pit stop, you're only going to be saving, sort of 5 seconds here or there. So now going up towards 9 seconds as we come up the hill, it's not looking too good there. But let's see how this one works out. Of course, still plenty of time to get that back if you can, as we see Grunig here, who is one of the drivers in the ranked championship as well, just coming up the hill in that 21st place, trying to get on the back of Kaspering, who's been around that 20th position all afternoon so far.
Yeah, just been staying around there. It's a bit of a surprise to see, as we've got Alex Mosin, who's going to have to come in for a drive through here, and that's from inside the top 10. Not slowing down enough through the slowdown warnings. You can pick them up here and there around here, because it is one of those circuits where you are liable to going a little bit wide, and Mosin clearly has not abided by them. There he is in a battle. I guess it must be even harder to slow down as well when you are in a battle like this, because you can see your rivals going away from you. When you're on your own, it's easier to comprehend, as we see it in the background there. I think it was who was that? Castan Herrera maybe, just having to pull out of line and slow down and let Lapanik through. That's exactly what Mosin didn't do by the looks of things, and he's going to have to pay an expensive penalty.
That is not nice. Look at all those cars behind him, that massive train, and that is that's going to hurt. I don't know exactly the delta of going through the pit lane, but it's surely going to be at least 20 seconds or so, which is going to drop him all the way down, at least 30th place, I would say, which is such a shame for Mosin, putting in a really good performance so far. But unfortunately, as you say, earning yourself a penalty is not a way to win a race or get a good result, because even in a 2.4 hour, you just don't have enough time to come back from that.
No, not really, as Sabdir looks up the inside into the bus stop chicane. Botti sort of gave him the room, but then didn't need to, as Alex Mosin comes into the pit lane for Palace Esports, and this is going to be a very, very long trip through pit lane. You can see he's already dropped well outside the top 10. He's probably going to be outside the top 20 by the time he re-emerges. You can see the guys battling over those kind of positions in the background, with Parvan at the front of that train actually in 19th. Is Mosin going to come out in front or behind those guys? He's going to be behind at this stage, although he's left the pit lane now. Might just get out in front, because you do miss the first corner, I suppose, when you are coming out the pit lane. But either way, it's a lot further down than where he was at the start of all that, and so he is going to need a big recovery here in this race. This group, though, hasn't calmed down any. Alessandro Botti once again defending from Zabdir, who's on the outside line going into Lecom. Trying to make his way through with the inside line into the second part, and he might just do it, although he's got the outside at Malmedy in, so he'll have to go for the over and under, and maybe have a sneak down the inside at Bruxelles. That's exactly what he's going to do. He's got a lot of his car alongside, and so this should be the move now, finally, with such a long corner. Inside line for Zabdir, and he finally does have the place. That was a lot of probing and a lot of work for Zabdir to make that one through, and Botti's got to be careful now. He doesn't get shuffled back to the back of the entire group here.
Yeah, that train is just horrendous. If you start going back one by one, Botti needs to be careful with that. Sometimes you can go on these downward spirals, which is not what obviously you want to be doing when there's just so many cars behind you. But that is Sven Mackenberg there in 8th place, is now going to be all over the back in that Bentley, and of course his brother Marvin right behind him to try and work their way through. Bit of double Bentley action as he come up towards the bus stop chicane for another time. Botti's done so good so far, but just not able to hold on to Zabdir, and that's a good time actually for Zabdir to get past, because if he's got some pace, he can really work into the few sort of 4 seconds gap in front of him and try and make up some time. But of course, just behind these guys, they're still battling as well. I think that's Lapanik trying to get involved with the Mackenberg brothers.
Absolutely, or one of them at least. He can't do both at the same time, so he's going to try and overtake Marvin first, I suppose. Wow, Castaneira's right on the back of him and giving him a harder time, arguably very late on the brakes for the Audi. And he's going to get the inside for the final corner, so he might have this, although he's been squeezed to a very tight line. Lapanik with a better one has just gotten a better run onto the front straight. Castaneira slots back into line in front of the McLaren of Sebastian Riz, so he can go on the defensive now, although the McLaren's still going to go for it. They're nearly free wide into La Source. The margins were always closing there, and Kulas realised that. He went around the outside instead and will look to maybe make his way through here on the straight. He's not going to be able to before Eau Rouge. He might try and do it afterwards, but that was all getting very claustrophobic down towards La Source because the gaps were always closing. And for a moment, it looked like somebody was going to end up facing the wrong way.
Yeah, they like to push the limits. As we've seen Botti and Mackenberg there side by side once again in towards Les Combes. Is Mackenberg going to be able to go around the outside? We've seen Botti lose a place there already, and they continue to go side by side through the next part. But I think Botti's been able to hold on to that one there for 7th place. But of course, the driver's just so close that anything can happen with a tiny little mistake. But this battle goes all the way down to 14th place. It looks like it's pretty intense battle with all these drivers fighting, and you just got to go for every single position that you can.
And that's exactly what they're doing. Even Grotte in the Bentley is just joining in the fun now. Kulas just trying to get that run out of No Name and maybe in for an inside move into Pouon. As slowing down is the Audi of Castaneira. Not the first time we've seen him do that, and he had to get out the way there. And so he loses out on those 2 places once again through No Name corner. The McLaren, the Mercedes on the outside. Here Kulas trying to break that a little bit later and get the inside for the left-handed part of the campus chicane, but he can't quite do it there, although it's another nicer run. Although very rare to see moves done at Stavolo, so you're going to have to wait that little bit longer. This group is very chaotic indeed. There's people going offline all over the place and opening up opportunities almost every second corner.
And because of that, they're actually splintering this group quite a bit. So that is not the ideal situation, because Ray now has dropped right off and is not getting the benefit of that slipstream. So Kulas here getting a bit of a run through Blanchimont corner up towards the bus stop, and this is obviously one of the best overtaking opportunities. You can dive it down the inside, you can dive it around the outside as well, as we've seen multiple times. Kulas trying it, but then we've got Castaneira trying to get involved as well, side by side into there, all bit of contact as we're coming towards the final apex, and that is somehow, you know, they're still facing the same direction, but Castaneira have been very aggressive today, but back down into that 13th place, losing a couple of places on these previous laps, trying to get it back, but unfortunately not able to do so that time as these guys continue to fight.
A little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact there, which is always scary, as we go even further back now to the battle for 19th, which we commented was going on earlier, but does contain some quite relatively big names as well. The likes of Parvan, who was a staple of the ranked championship in season 1. We've got Guillaume Vigneron, whose name is my favourite to say in all of sim racing, and Kasperink as well in 22nd. He's here as well. So there's some very big names in a train that's quite far down, especially for Parvan, who's in a Corvette that's leading this race at the moment. Well, it's not his, but the Corvette is leading. Grunik on the outside of him right now and challenging him for this 19th, but you can only assume he's been having miserable luck with this move over the last 20 minutes. Maybe now is the moment. Outside for the first part of Lecom, he's got the inside for the second part. These two leaning on each other. Oh my word. And Grunik now finally around the outside at Malmedy, makes his way through, and up the inside, Vigneron gives it a go, but Parvan breaks super late, way too late. He goes wide, and through no-name corner, Vigneron is going to be able to make his way through and seal that move into 20th place. This is a very dense pack for so far down, and with some very big names attached to it as well.
Certainly, and this is just an amazing battle. Still lower down places, but they're still fighting for it as Kaspering in that 22nd place now is really trying to work his way forward. He's obviously lost a couple of places there, but just in the background, you've got Vertrich just trying to get all over the back of his well. Parvan once again having a bit of an issue there, coming into the campus chicane under the brakes, maybe not just so confident at this moment in time. That does a concertina effect as well, with a couple of drivers bumping into each other, which is not ideal. But as we come out onto the back straight once again, Parvan just being dropped from the group ahead, and that could leave him vulnerable.
It could well do. Parvan's just falling through this group like a stone now. It's not good news for him. Kasperink is trying to make his way through in this Ferrari, the only one in the field, and surely this is going to be the moment. Good run through Blanchimont. A nice braking zone coming up at the bus stop chicane, and here he goes, very late, super late on the brake, side-to-side contact though, and he's going to end up off the road into the side of another Audi. Vertrich there, and now Troitas is going to make his way through as well, quite possibly in the Corvette on the outside line. That all got very messy, and the flash of the light says it all there from Kaspering.
Yeah, that is a little bit over the top from some of these drivers, just pushing it that little bit too far, especially considering that this is obviously for this isn't for the win, and it's still with 2 hours to go in this race. Don't worry about the time at the top there, as you see, just goes down to 2 hours now. Obviously missing the zeros in that one, but let's see as they come up the hill. Is Kaspering going to be able to hold on to this, or are we seeing the drivers behind trying to get on with that and trying to work their way up? We're seeing some drivers also up and down the tower having some side-by-side action as well. Kaspering now coming towards the braking zone, just covering off the inside there and able to hold on to the position.
He does, and he'll be pretty glad about that, because he's already struggling to get through on Parvan. He doesn't need extra obstacles in his way to getting this 21st position. You can already see just how much these guys are being slowed up. Look at Grunig and Vigneron here, already 2 seconds away, 2.5 seconds away respectively from this Corvette. Parvan, for whatever reason, is not getting this car hooked up with this track at all, and it's not really working out for him right now. Kaspering just going to fancy his chance and going to really be looking to get through ASAP, because he's just losing time here. You can see that last lap, a 21.7, which is nearly a second and a half slower than what he has done so far here in this race. It's a lot slower going behind this Corvette, even when they're not battling as they were on the last lap. You can be sure there's going to be another bit of a battle going on into the bus stop chicane here. It's all about this run out of the curb pull Frere. He doesn't even need an astonishingly groundbreaking run, just needs a good one, and he's so close here. There's going to be round 2.
And coming towards Blanchimont isn't going to be the easiest place to go side by side, but looks like he's trying it down the inside, putting his far east contact though, he's pushed onto the grass, and he's going to lose 2 places round the outside as well. Just a little bit of door rubbing coming through Blanchimont. That could have been a huge accident, but somehow Kaspering is still going in a straight line after having a bit of an excursion.
That could have been absolutely massive for the Dutch driver. I think he just got his nose alongside there, and Parvan either didn't realise or didn't want to, because he did not give much room there to Kaspering, who drops to 24th place as Troitas and Vertrich get through. And now they've let Grant, Huiseman, Hennig all get involved here as well. Got Giordano not too far behind as well in the Corvette in 28th position. This train is growing larger and larger, and it's all down to Daniel Parvan and his defending at the front of this group right now, weaving around as well to drake the slipstream up the Kemmel Straight, as Alessandro Botti is also having to do some defending here from Sven Mackenberg, Marvin Mackenberg, and everybody else in between. Mackenberg briefly got in front there on the run up the Kemmel Straight, but wasn't able to consolidate the move through Lecom.
Yeah, difficult battles going on. All the drivers pushing each other to the limit and working out where it is. As we see, one of the cars they go massively wide on the exit of the no-name corner there. Of course, there is a limit at some point of going wide there, but for sure you can take a little bit more speed as we stay focused on Sven Mackenberg here. Still with his brother behind him. These two have been side by side pretty much the whole race so far after qualifying next to each other. And they've just been, in that sort of train of the Bentleys, but not able to get past Botti at this moment in time, who has been dropped by Zabdir. Zabdir's gone up the road, has actually got closer to Latkovsky, so I wonder if the Polish driver will be challenging for that 5th place in a few laps' time.
Let's see. I mean, anything can happen here. These groups are so numerous, and Spa is not a circuit you would expect to see big groups forming like this because of the length of the circuit. It does give you a lot of time to kind of stretch these margins out quite in a big way. But we're seeing big groups starting to form behind some drivers defending very hard indeed. Here's Alex Mosin. I mean, he's almost back to the group he was in before. This is an astonishing drive from him, but it also speaks to the amount of battling that is going on in this field, and he's part of it now around the outside of our end, and that's a very nice move inside of the final corner. It should be done, but the Audi not giving up. They're going to be side by side over the line. They're going to argue about this all the way through the first sector as well.
They certainly are, and I'm surprised Mosin didn't get a better exit than he did off the exit of that final corner. Side by side, actually through the apex there of turn number 1 as well. Ren still holding on to this one as Mosin is going to have to drop him. But that move around the outside, if he managed to complete that, that's what he could have done quite a few laps ago with their battle with Botti and Zabdir, and that would have changed his race massively. But instead, he's down in 18th. Didn't lose as much time going through the pit lane as I thought, actually, and he's still really in for a shout if he can make this work up the hill towards Lake Com. Which way is he going to go? Is he going to go left? No, he's going to go right now, down the inside, having a big dive here, trying to go up into that 17th place. It looks like he's just going to be able to make it this time around, and he's going to finally be up into that 17th place. He's got a couple of seconds to Dumanko there in 16th place, so let's see how that one works out for him.
He'll probably be on the back of the Audi very soon, I would imagine. You saw in the background as well, Parvan once again defending on a group that is once again larger than it was last time we looked at it. Just continues to grow in size. A remarkable race for some of these guys outside of the top 10, where most of the action has been so far, at least in the lower part of the top 10 at most. It's been a very clean and I don't want to say easy race for Elias Drobosikov, but he hasn't had any challenges to his lead just yet. The gap is only just under 2 seconds at the moment, so there's absolutely no way this race is over just yet. However, he's in control just for the moment. This is Lapanik trying to further his position inside the top 10 right now by getting through on Marvin Mackenberg to make his way through, showing the nose left and right. And now it's going to have to be the bus stop chicane. We've already seen that moves on the way up towards Blanchemont and through there. Not a great idea. And it doesn't look like he's quite got the run through there to maybe make the move here. And he's late on the brakes, but not quite close enough to really make a move. Although he put Mackenberg off very definitely. And now he's going to have his moment. A nice run onto the front straight. And he's got the outside line again, but he's in a much better place.
He certainly is, and it looked like he got a really good run off that final corner, but maybe the Bentley just having that little bit better straight line speed there, even on that start-finish straight. But side by side now as they actually gets there on the exit. Couldn't quite see it from the angle where Lapanik moving up and Marvin drops down towards 10th place, and now there's a couple of seconds gap between these guys up towards Sven Mackenberg as well. So let's see how this Bentley comes back at him against the Mercedes up the hill towards Les Combes. And at the moment, the absolute noticeable car in 9th place is holding on, but the Bentley's coming back onto the outside now, up towards Les Combes. Marvin Mackenberg around the outside on the brakes, but Lapanik's going to be holding it on the inside. The two giving each other respectful room. It looks like Lapanik once again holding on the exit through Malmedy, and he's been able to finally make that move stick. But as we come back towards the hairpin, they continue to be side by side.
That's a remarkable cutback from Marvin Mackenberg there to get down the inside, or at least have a look into the next corner, but wasn't able to do it as behind Sebastian Rear and Kulas as well, battling over 11th place, just outside the top 10 at the moment. They've resolved that one, with Rear not being able to get his way through. Christian Grotz and Castanera just in behind as well there, you can see in that little group. We're over half an hour into this race, by the way, and this is where the interest comes into it with regards to a strategic point of view. We haven't really been able to talk about it so far because of all the racing that has been going on. However, in these 2.4-hour races, as we've said earlier on, there's a big pit window for you to go into. Everybody's going to have to do 2 stops here, there's no doubt about that. However, everybody's going to have to, or everybody can do them at very different points in the race, and the window's certainly open right now for somebody stuck in a group to get in the pit lane early and maybe put on a bit of a strategy game here.
They certainly can, but of course, generally you want to try and go as long as you can, but certainly someone being a little bit spicy can be doing that as Castanera back down into 14th place now, just yo-yoing a little bit at the back end there of the top 15 as Grotta there goes past into 13th place, and these guys have obviously been battling so much as we're seeing yellow flags there in sector 3. I wonder if someone's had a bit of an issue. I think it's Kasperink, is it, dropping down the field, or maybe it's just actually just going up and down the leaderboard. Maybe just a bit of an update. But no, he's actually had a DNF in the end, and that is not the way he would have wanted to see his race go.
No, he was having a pretty miserable race anyway, but not the ending he would have wanted. First retirement of the day, over half an hour in, which is a great thing to see. Not the fact he's retired, the fact we've gone more than half an hour without retirement is the good part of that. But yeah, there we go. He's out now, unfortunately, as side by side battling up in front. Sven Mackenberg trying to make his way through, and Alessandro Botti, and we've also got Lapinick versus Mackenberg as well, side by side just up in front. Sven Mackenberg makes his way through. Can Marvin Mackenberg hold on to his place? It looks like he has, as the Corvette is going to come back for seconds here on Sven Mackenberg. Botti straight down the inside, nearly into the side of the Bentley. The two of them keep it respectful though around Bruxelles and into No Name Corner. It's a nice flowing run for the Corvette, and Botti is going to hold on to that place ahead of Mackenberg, and Marvin Mackenberg has held off Lapinick just for the moment as well.
Yeah, these guys giving us great battles. They are not saving fuel or doing anything like that. They are just going for the positions. They want the track position. They want to have the control in these battles, and it's great to see the fights continuing, even as you say, over half an hour into this race. But how long can this continue for? Because surely at some point they're going to be struggling a little bit with the tyres, maybe towards the end of the stint. Let's see how that one goes out, because of course, that is how the driver controls the car. That's something that the driver can really be on top of, and keeping that pace as we get towards the latter points. And a little bit up the road from this Sabdir, once again getting closer and closer to Latkovsky, about a second, just over a second now behind him as well. So that's a battle that's still going to be coming our way shortly. But for now, Mackenberg Sven, that is getting closer into the bus stop chicane. Let's see if he tries to get past on this lap.
Let's see. It's going to be difficult. But you never know. He's given it a good go. Last couple of laps, certainly. Just as Marvin Mackenberg had to go on the defensive, his brother started to go on the offensive just up in front and try and execute from this on, but not a great thing to be so quick on the entry of La Source there and not so good on the exit, so there might not be any move up towards the com on this occasion. Lapinick might have a go in the background though. He's a lot closer. He's got Kulas right behind as well, mistaking him on in the other Mercedes. Two of them driving different versions, I believe, at least. Here we go. Is Lapinick going to be able to make the move? Mackenberg not defending, interestingly. And is Mackenberg just staying in behind there? Because he's very close. Although now he makes the move right at the last moment. It's not quite early enough though. Oh, Mackenberg goes off the road. Well, that's going to be a controversial one, because he has gone off the road there and gained or hold on to the place, I should say. And it doesn't look like he's had to slow down very much for it either.
Or now around the outside, Kulas thinking about it, but Lapinick just been able to hold on to that one. And you're right, Mackenberg really, he didn't sort of gain anything, but it's always one of those things where he didn't lose anything, which is probably the situation to be looked at. But of course, he's still in that place for now. Lapinick needs to try and find a way past, and maybe on this next one. Interesting that he didn't get slowed down or anything though from Mackenberg, because he really sent it over that chicane, and it looked like he would have to at least do something to redress that. But either way, we're going on, and Lapinick needs to try again in this Mercedes, with a further Mercedes behind him as well, as we get out onto this back straight once again.
Very close now. But this group once again growing, as we've seen. There's been a bit of a story of the race so far. I think Alex Mosin's not too far away from getting involved here as well. He can't be far away. So that's a remarkable drive from him, a remarkable recovery from the drive-through that he experienced earlier on in the race. But Meickenberg still on the defensive here. Lapinic, Kulas have been there for a lap or two now, but his Sebastian Rit and Grut, Castanera, they're all here at this stage, and there's side-by-side up in front as well. Sven Meickenberg and Alessandro Botti once again fighting it out between themselves, and it means that the two of them going to be caught by this six-car train as well. The Bentley getting its nose in front, although not all the way in front because he can't quite go on the defensive. Botti goes down the inside, the two of them leaving each other room for a last horse, and they're still going to go side by side. It looks like Meickenberg's going to have to give this one up though on the run up towards Eau Rouge, although he's not going to. He'll use a bit of that speed from the Bentley, and he will finally get that place, although it might be short-lived.
Let's see though on that top speed of the Bentley, because we've actually got Marvin Meickenberg coming all the way up towards Botti in the background as well. I don't think that Corvette's got enough to come back as Sven Meickenberg there up in towards that 7th place, and actually Marvin there thinking about it down the inside of Botti, and that is a bit of a turnaround from how that battle was going. Just a couple of laps to go. And I wonder how that one is going to work, because of course Lapnik is heavily involved in that battle as well, although he's just dropped off a little bit and has got his fellow Mercedes of Kulas right behind him. These battles continue to go on here, which is great to see. But Sven there up into 7th place.
Finally, it's been a long time coming there, but he's got that move. It's cost him about 4 seconds in the battle with Zabdir there, and he could have been on his way to catching Matt Lapkowski as well, as crazy as that is to say at this stage in the race, but he could well have been, judging by the pace at the moment. Although Botti now is starting to struggle himself. He's going to find himself in a similar position to well, what he has been in the whole race so far, really. He's just lower down the order now. He might well be outside the top 10 by the time we get to the first pit stops of the day, but let's see about that. We've still got a fair amount of time until we get to that point. These drivers can still go at least another 20 minutes on this tank of fuel, although nobody really in the top positions have come in as Sebastian Rear. They're just pushing the boundaries through the curb pull, Fred.
Yeah, drivers all over the place. There's gravel and dust being kicked up there. Drivers all over the place as they really are pushing to the limits, just showing you how close these battles are. And look, once again, it's sort of closed up with this battle from P7 Sven Meickenberg all the way down to Castanera. They're in 14th place, actually around the outside of Grutter, side by side into the final corner. Castanera's done that a couple of times, but Grutter's going to have enough speed on the exit, probably that Bentley as well, to hold on, which he does. But this car, sort of 8-car battle now is really raging on. It's great to see just how close these drivers are staying.
It's fantastic to see. It's great news for us. Bodes very well for the rest of the race. Castanera right on the back of that Bentley now is hiding behind the taller figure of the car in front, and may well have the opportunity with a bit of slipstream. No weight being added to this car, of course, from the BOP, and not going to really be much of an advantage up the Kemmel Straight, I'm afraid. No move on this occasion. They're all going to remain single file into Le Combe for the first time in a very long time, and they'll be pretty glad for the little bit of respite. A couple of drivers just dipping wheels into the gravel there and kicking up some dirt, but Sven Meickenberg just not really getting away at the moment. He's struggling to get away. Botti back in front, of course. Sven Meickenberg. Botti in front of Marvin Meickenberg, and Sven struggling to get away from Botti. It's meaning that Meickenberg is kind of inviting all the pressure to be on himself at the moment, with the two Mercedes just in behind. But we are over 40 minutes into this race now, so these kind of calmer periods and these single file periods are a bit more expected than what we saw earlier.
Yeah, for sure the drivers would have calmed down from that adrenaline rush at the beginning. But when you're in a battle, like we're seeing on screen now, you need to take your opportunities, because if not, the guy behind you is going to be coming for you, and really just going to be working their way up towards the back and trying to make an overtake, as Lapnik has been on Marvin Meickenberg now. these guys 30 seconds off Drovosekov, who's still leading the way. We haven't looked at him, but he's certainly there, with Mayer following him, because these battles have just been so good, and Lapnik is holding on to this 10th place for now, but he's going to be starting to look once again as Marvin Mackenberg, as these guys also are looking potentially at the likes of Botti just ahead of them, who has obviously recently been overtaken by Sven Mackenberg, and that really starts to open up opportunities. But of course, these guys also not too far behind Latkovsky and Zabdir up ahead as well, so if they sort themselves out, this could eventually be a big battle for 5th place.
Well, it's a big if, I think, but you never know. On board, and here he is, Cody Nikola Latkovsky, 5th position at the moment, 25 seconds behind Drovosekov. For whatever reason, this is not going right for the McLaren driver, and Zabdir is going to find his way through very easily indeed. Latkovsky just eases off towards the end of the Kemmel Straight there and almost lets him through. Now, well, gets a very nice run through Lecom there, and Zabdir will have to go on the defensive once again. Will Latkovsky have another go? Doesn't look like it. He's going to stay behind. Now, I guess the only saving thing here for Latkovsky is he extending this stint out wildly to do a one-stop race here somehow? Because that's the only reason I can see it. I mean, he's lost 25 seconds in just over 40 minutes. What does that relate to? We're on lap 19 at the moment. He's losing more than a second a lap to a driver he was pretty much matching in qualifying. Only a tenth and a half separated them. And all of a sudden, he's lost more than a second a lap. It's really bizarre, but I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that might be able to save Latkovsky, really.
The only thing is, 25 seconds is getting close to the time of that second pit stop as well that you're trying to save. So I'm not sure if that is really the strategy that's going to win him the race. It might gain a couple of places though from where he is at this moment in time, if that is what he's doing. So we'll just have to see when they start to make their pit stops. We're about 15 minutes away, 16 minutes away from the hour, because obviously it's 2 hours and 24 minutes. So it's a very exact time are these 2.4 hours. And therefore, that, as we said, opens up some strategic options. But I don't think that is what Latkovsky's doing. I think he's just struggling a little bit on the long run pace.
As Kunz comes into the pit lane, first of the real front runners to come in here with 1 hour 40 remaining here in this race. So what's that, roughly 100 minutes out of the 144? It's roughly splitting it into thirds, which I guess is a mathematical, symmetrical way to do it, but we'll see if it turns out being the fastest. I think it mainly depends whether Kunz comes out in traffic or not. That could be a real make or break moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategic option. So I wonder if he started with a full tank or if he started underfueled. Because if you start underfueled, then obviously you're lighter, you're quicker, but then you also over the race need to take more fuel to get towards the end. Whereas the people who started with the race, they've already got it in the car for free, effectively. So let's see where Kunz comes out. Currently 28th position, and looks like he's got a bit of a gap to Dollamore behind him. But yeah, it looks like that's going to be where he's going to be, and he's got a couple of seconds gap to Rebello ahead, and that traffic could be an important factor. But now let's see, obviously when everyone else makes their pit stop, he is obviously going to be in a potentially in a good place to make a gain, because that stop would have been quicker.
Absolutely, and there is the traffic situation in front of him. Rebello, Giordano, Hennig in front of them. You can just see, by the way, the green icon next to his time gap to the leader there, indicating that he has been in the pit stop so far, in the pit lane so far. 2 pit stops aren't mandated. That's why it's already gone green. You only have to make 1. So we'll be able to see who has been in and who hasn't over the next 20 minutes or so as drivers make their first pit stops of the day. Big slide for Ilya Drovosekov through the final chicane there, and this lead margin is getting that little bit closer. It's come now down below a second for the first time since about lap 2, I think.
They certainly have, but that once again was a pretty, decent lap from Drovosekov. So it's not like he's going slow per se, but Mayer's just doing a really good job. And we did mention a bit earlier how Mayer had such a good end to the season in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship Season 1. I believe just doing that final race in Watkins Glen, but really pushing towards the front. I think maybe getting 3rd place on that day. So really a driver to look out for, of course, in these races. And Drovosekov is not going to have it easy as we come up to Les Combes once again. This battle is going to be going on. Mayer is close enough that he gets probably that extra 10th a lap just because you have the that visual representation in front of you, and you really want to gain that lap time.
Oh, excuse me, D'Amico was into the pit lane there, and I thought he was dropping down after a spin, and there's a number of pit stops happening, I think, because Vertrich is also losing that little bit of time. May well be in the pit lane. He is indeed, there it is, as well as Grot in the Corvette, so there's plenty of pit stops now beginning to develop, and I did suspect that once one came in, then there was going to be a bit of a train coming in. So let's see how the leaders deal with this, because of course they'll start to stumble upon some lapped traffic as well, which is going to be something to negotiate, and that might initiate some pit stops between these two. We're now at about the third of the way through this race now. What are we, 48 minutes into roughly this race, maybe a bit further. And so yeah, it's getting towards that 50-minute mark, where we'll be getting towards the halfway mark, pretty much, sorry, the 3rd mark, as Kunz goes through, or does he, on Rebello? Well, this is a driver who stopped and a driver who hasn't. There's contact, and Rebello goes around. I don't think Kunz is going to feel too much remorse about that, because he will feel that he needs to get through as quickly as possible, and the Rebello will realise that obviously those two were on the same lap, they were fighting for position, and so he was fighting for it.
Or he's lost the front bumper there as well, so that's going to be some damage to that BMW. Is a little bit further behind. We've got Pavlicek here trying to get past Dolomor for this 26th, 27th place battle, and it's got the BMW versus the new McLaren 720S, obviously new, being recently added with the DTM 2021 pack here for RaceRoom. And that has been a nice addition indeed. And let's see how this battle continues. These drivers not making the pit stop just yet. So these guys are unfortunately just a little bit further off the pace of the guys ahead, but still having a nice battle.
Absolutely. As Hoyt comes into the pit lane from 3rd position at the time. We'll see where he comes out in relation to Kunz here. Inside line. Oh my word, that was a late move and a late dive, but he's gotten through on Kulas. Grot and Castianera are going to try and get in on the action here as well. Up Rouge and through Radion as well. Riz put some good distance between himself and Kulas there somehow, and he pulls out a line slightly, just Kulas. I wonder if he's had to slow down there. Doesn't look like it. He's just getting caught by the two behind. Castanera, is he going to make a move here, or is he going to stay and wait behind? He's going to wait behind. Grotte also does that as well. Oh, although there's a big stack up and a bit of contact, and so the Audi starts to go through anyway up the inside of Malmedy. The two remain side by side, going down towards the hairpin at Bruxelles, and now finally Castanera is surely going to be able to make his way through. It's quite wide for the Bentley, and so the Audi goes through. Interesting notification at the top of the screen though. Killian Hood speeding in the pit lane will have to go through all over again. He came out behind Kunz by quite a few seconds anyway. I know the two weren't quite nose to tail, but they weren't quite that far apart. But they're going to be even further apart in a few moments, because one of the drivers is going to have to come back down pit lane all over again.
Yeah, and he was looking to have a good day today. Good evening of racing here at the 2.4 hours of Spa, but unfortunately that's going to drop in 10-15 seconds back as we're getting back to this battle for the race lead. These drivers haven't made a pit stop yet, as we're now over 50 minutes into the race. They can still do a few more laps for sure, but Mayer is getting very close now. 4 tenths behind Drovosekov for this lead, and Mayer's been sat there the whole race so far, but now let's see if he's able to get that race lead that Drovosekov has held since that one.
Now finally, the first opening really for a lead change for a very long time. Drovosekov not really used to this situation in terms of being challenged for a race lead. He's normally getting to the end of races without a driver in sight almost. Kevin Mayer giving it a great fight to the Swiss driver here at this moment. Kevin Mayer, the third in terms of the rating score here for this race. He's got the third out of the drivers at the moment, the third best. And he's giving Drogosikov a big run for his money right now. We're closing up to an hour gone, though, in this race. Pit stops are surely going to be soon. Will these two play any funny games with those stops, or will they go normal? And what are they going to do about tyres here? Are they going to change them this time, or are they going to change them at the second stop, or not at all?
Well, I'm going to assume that you're going to have to do tyre change at least on one of the stops. Which could potentially be a reason why some of the drivers were stopping earlier to maybe to get the best use out of the tyres and not have a stint that's too long. But of course, that could change massively the pit stop times. And it looks like Hoyt there going back through the pit lane to serve his drive-through, down in 22nd place now. But of course, drivers ahead still need to owe their pit stops, quite a few of them, in fact. But now almost an hour and a half to go in this race, and as you say, the strategic options between these two is going to be intense. Overcut, undercut, what is going to work out there as Parvin and Huysman side by side through Lecombe. Huysman all the way around the outside, bit of contact between the two on the second apex now as Parvin gets the inside for the next part, but contact once again, and this is just going to continue as we come down towards the hairpin. Huysman is still trying to get involved between these two guys, but around the outside Parvin holds onto it, and we actually get Troites coming through as well, trying to get up the inside. This will be the outside for the next corner, but Huysman once again keeps up the inside. These two still side by side, but Troites goes all the way around the outside and holds on as we come down towards Pouhon.
That was great respect between everybody. Very late on the brakes from Huysman into Bruxelles there, trying to make his way through on Parvin, but was not able to quite do it on that occasion. And so we'll have to stay behind for Parvin. All of Parvin's defending here. He is relatively good at it and has been keeping quite a lot of drivers behind so far in this race, and that might be why so many a bit further down actually have come in already here in this race. Looking back from his Corvette now, and in this all Corvette battle, and he's still at the head of it, although there's not long. I would suspect he's so wide through the curb pull through, as we've now got to change for the lead quite possibly. Kevin Myers on the outside line of Ilya Drogosikov into Lecombe, and we've got a new leader. Kevin Mayer in the BMW gets past Drogosikov, who can't hold him back any longer, and with 90 minutes to go, we do have a new leader.
And this is going to be very important, of course, because the driver ahead will potentially have a little bit more of control of when they're going to be coming into the pit lane, and they might not have to try anything silly to get ahead. So this could work out pretty well, as Drogosikov has been looking every corner so far to get back, but Mayer holding on, and this is working out really great for him. They've obviously dropped the cars behind massively over the course of the race, and obviously Zabdi is third place at the moment. He will drop down, but even the likes of who've pit with Kunz, etc., they're going to have a nice big gap ahead of them. It's just a two-way battle now, and Mayer is at the lead of it.
He is indeed. The two of them with nearly half a minute over their nearest rivals at this stage, although Kunz and Hoyt were their nearest rivals, and they have already stopped yet, whereas these two have not for the moment. And you can just see Mayer there weaving around to try and deny Drogosikov the bit of slipstream he wanted up towards Blanchimont, taking those different lines to just alleviate that a little bit. Now through Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane, we really are getting towards a bit of traffic. I think that's Grard just in front in the Corvette. It might not be, but I think it is. The two of them make their way through. It's going to be another lap. We're very close to an hour into this race now. I think these guys are really doing the normal strategy, which is just run the tank dry at the first stint and then kind of see where you go from there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best option, because later on you obviously have shorter stops. Always Mayer, they're getting wiggly on the exit. That is going to open the door to Drogosikov to get the slipstream as we come up the hill through Eau Rouge, through Radion, and onto the Kemmel Straight. It's so important to get the run off the exit of La Source, all over the inside curb though, the two go as we come up the hill, and it looks like the BMW's had a better run there over the top, but trying to weave just a little bit, get out of the slipstream, and Drogosikov actually doesn't follow him and decides that he doesn't need to do that. But Mayer going all the way to the inside there. He really wants to hold on to this race lead.
Yeah, so much weaving. But Drobosikov there, I think, was just trying to indicate to the German that actually I don't want to fight you at the moment because I don't want to invite everyone else to the party, and so we better just stay in line for the moment, and then we'll fight it out again a little bit later on. But Meyer is clearly very worried about Drobosikov in the rearview mirror there. He's clearly mirror watching just that little bit, and Drobosikov is almost urging him to stay online and get on with this at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly is, and Meyer is actually, with the level of defense that he's doing, is actually slowing himself down with it being that extreme, literally just spending more time moving across the track than going in a straight line so far. But it's actually working out as it stands. He's able to hold on to this victory, well, I say victory, onto this lead, I should say, still just under an hour and a half to go. But Drobosikov there just going a little bit wide, and this is going to be an important battle. And one more lap and we will be at the hour mark. So are they going to be able to make that? And if they can, just how far longer can they go?
Can they make it to 1 hour 12? I doubt it, but you never know. If they can, they can split it in half, but I doubt they would do that at the moment as they do approach Gras in the Corvette. Recently refueled and back out there again after making the first of 2 pit stops today. Brown and Hennig are both into the pit lane as well. Into the bus stop chicane, the leaders come again, and they stay out once again. At the end of this lap, they will have made exactly an hour, pretty much. So that's going to be great news for them. And Meyer's starting to pull a bit of an advantage here. Nearly 1 second to Drobosikov now as the lap car gets well out of the way.
Yeah, Order once again lighting up the rears. Is that a sign that his tyres are starting to wear? Is that a sign he's going to be changing the tyres at the pit stop? Or is he just pushing so much to try and make sure he gets the best exit? Because if he can get just a little bit further ahead, Drobosikov will be getting no slipstream and therefore will be really struggling to to hold on to that one. As Zabdir ahead of Latkovsky now for this battle, which is still for 3rd place as these guys haven't stopped. But Sven Mackenberg is all over the back of them as well. He's made progress, dropping Botti behind there, but Latkovsky trying to get back past and get up into that 3rd place, and is really doing well, and is going to be getting the slipstream here.
That was a stylish bit of a burnout there on the exit of La Source, but all in the name of just trying to get as much pace up the Kemmel Straight as possible. Over the hill they go, and Zabdir is going to be eaten alive, you would imagine, by the McLaren, as further behind Kunz is really trying to get ahead of a lot of different drivers. Parvan, Huysman and Troitus, who were all battling between themselves. He's gotten through on them now, and just as he does that, Troitus comes into the pit lane, rather annoyingly for him, I suppose. You can just see there, a 2:21.0 on that last lap. He's really been held up by this kind of early pit stop strategy, even though it might have worked out in the short term. The longer it goes on, the more traffic he comes up across, and the more he gets slowed down, just lapping it goes off the road in the middle sector.
Yeah, I think Lapin's had a bit of an issue, as you say, but for Kunze, I just think that it hasn't worked out the way that he wanted. But if everyone's doing a 2-stop race anyway, then that obviously takes away the sort of major loss. But of course, he's going to have actually a longer stop now on his 2nd stop because he pitted so early in that first one. So sort of the trade-off that you have to work out, and him getting stuck in that battle lost the advantage that he has at this moment, or had at this moment in the race. As you come back to this battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th place, with Sven Mackenberg on the back of Latkovsky, who's on the back himself of Zabdir, as we just passed 1 hour in the race, and Meyer goes into the pit lane along with Drobosikov. So it seems the fuel is exactly 1 hour, or are some of these drivers going to go even further?
Well, let's see. It does seem strange that the 2 leaders have come in nose to tail, though. I would imagine everybody else is going to have to do the same. Let's see, into the bus stop chicane for Zabdir, Latkovsky and Mackenberg. They're going to be able to stay out. So it's a remarkable game of cat and mouse. There must be a remarkable game of cat and mouse going on between the 2 leaders. And now, how much fuel do you put in for this next stint? Drobosikov's already going, I think. No, he's not. He's still there in the box.
Yeah, I think it's just because of where they're passing them in the pit lane. The towers obviously are just going to move around a bit. So let's see where they come out. in relation to Kunze, because that is obviously the driver they were sort of closest to, and that is obviously going to be the battle in this next part as Lapinic comes in the pit lane as well. But Lekowski now, this battle which is effectively for the race lead at this moment in time, is getting the slipstream up towards Zabdir, up towards Lecom, and that is really going to be the best overtaking opportunity, it seems, throughout this lap.
Oh, wow.
But I would just wonder if he can hold on to it.
Drovasegov has track position again. Meyer loses out on that occasion, but did he put more fuel in there than Drovasegov? Did the Swiss driver just miss out on a few laps of fuel there to get the track position back once again? We'll find out as this race really unwinds and concludes as well in 1 hour 22 minutes time. However, the lead battle is raging, and it really has now a lead battle between Zabdir, Lapkowski and Mackenberg. Here they are. Surely they can't go another 10 minutes here and surprise the field, because if they were able to, then they're nearly half a minute ahead of the leaders, but I somehow doubt it.
Yeah, they are close enough to the leaders that this one might actually be able to work out for them. But as you say, they need to go just that little bit longer, which is another like 4 or 5 laps, which might be a bit of a stretch. But they have been in battles, they have been in slipstream the whole time. So let's see if that one works out for them. I think the situation with the leaders is basically either, as you say, the mayor, maybe he drained the whole tank, and therefore he obviously then had more to put in, or as you say, Drovasegov maybe took out a few litres less to have the track position now, but therefore he would then have to take more fuel at the next stop. So again, it's one of those trade-offs whether you gain now or later, but this could work out because he's got a nice couple of seconds advantage and obviously a bit of a clean air without any battles.
It also does plant the seed as well in terms of but Meyer will be thinking a little bit about, just the BMW, maybe take that little bit longer to fuel up here. And does Drovasegov know something that, or can he do something that I can't, and so on and so forth? Just plant that seed of doubt in his mind as Castanera comes into the pit lane after another lap as the leaders continue on again. Lapkowski starting to look a little bit faster than he was earlier on as everybody starts to lose pace and wind down with the low tyre wear the high tyre wear and the tyres going off at this point. Here is Lekowski, and he's staying behind. I think that was a conscious decision there to stay behind there. He doesn't really want to fight this one out. He's just waiting. 20.1 from him on that last lap. He's capable of doing a 19.0, which in race pace is very respectable indeed in terms of this field anyway. And so, what do the next 8 minutes or so of this race bring for Lapkowski? Will he remain on circuit for all of them, or will he have to come in? I mean, it could well be simply down to the kind of high fuel load he had earlier on in the race that really wasn't suiting the car earlier on. It really could be as simple as that, but we don't really know at the moment.
Yes, an interesting one that haven't quite worked out. Of course, if he was going long, that would explain the slower pace though, because he would have been saving just a little bit. But we still need a few more laps for that one to work out. And then, of course, he'll be doing the same stint length again as Parvan now is into the pit lane. And interestingly, on the gap, so Drovasegov has got a 5-second gap to Mayer. So that's a long, big distance considering the Mayer led going into these stops as well. But Kun's in there, 13th place at this moment, third in terms of the pit stoppers. He's now only another 5 seconds back from Mayer as well as he gets past Castanera there, who's obviously not had his stop yet either. So Kun's really is in with a shout of fighting with Mayer, but of course we'll have a slightly longer final stop.
Apologies there, I thought that was Kunz going through on Meyer there. I was getting surprised. No, that's just Castanera. I could have sworn I saw him come in the pit lane though there. I think Castanera has had to do a drive-through penalty there. I'm not entirely sure, but I could have sworn I saw him drive down pit lane. And he was around, he was pretty much inseparable from the likes of Grotte earlier on in the race as well.
Yeah, that would make sense if he had
about the distance.
If he had a penalty, yeah, that would make sense. And of course, the green and red is not being in the pit lane. It's actually obviously if you stopped and and such as obviously we saw Mosin earlier having the drive-through, as well as, talking of him, Mosin and Botti both into the pit lane for their stops, and of course we'll be trying to work out exactly where they are going to work out, as we now have about a pretty just over 50-50 split between stopped and not stopped, and it seems like some drivers are still going long. I think these guys must be staying out for a one stop.
Well, they've got to go another 3 laps if they want to do this. And do you really worried about that if you're Ilya Drobosakov at the moment? The gap is 22 seconds to the leaders right now. They may well be saving fuel that you are not. However, as you said earlier, their final pit stop here for the likes of Drobosakov going to be a lot shorter. He only needs to put 24 minutes worth of fuel in, which is obviously less than half. Although I don't know the time of a full fuel fill-up for these drivers. But say it's roughly 40 seconds, just for the ease of maths. If he's only doing, what, 40% of his usual fill-up, he'll be doing what, 15, 16 second pit stop and saving about 25 seconds-ish for the ease of maths, just in a hypothetical situation. And he's already, only 21 seconds behind them. So while it is very impressive at the moment, and, they're leading, if they're doing this in one stop, then they're legitimately leading right now, I suppose. But later on in the race, the others are going to benefit from this.
And also, they'll be slower in their second stint as well, because they'll be having to fuel save in that second stint as well. But maybe overall they'll be closer than they were to the leaders in that first stint.
Not like Koski.
So
because he started second, so I don't really see what Latkovsky would gain from going on a strategy like that.
That is true for Latkovsky. It hasn't worked out for the likes of Zabdir and Mackenberg. Maybe that's a bit too early for the one stop, but that is at least going to be a very short final stop for Zabdir. But he hasn't been able to make the extra 2 laps, maybe even 3, that you need to be safe, because obviously the race doesn't end exactly when you hit 0. You might need to have an extra lap, so you need to be careful to not run out of fuel on the final lap if you do that way. But Ray in the pit stop as well. But Latkovsky, the 2 Mackenbergs and Grotta still out there potentially trying to get to this one-stop strategy.
Can they do it? They need to do another couple of laps to be able to. Drobosakov is homing in. 20 seconds now is the margin. He is close, in relative terms, of course, to the back of those guys, as Latkovsky and Mackenberg lead this race 1 and 2 at this stage. Guillaume Vigneron also joins the other 2, Zabdir and rear into the pit lane, and so they make their start. Alessandro Botti also doesn't have the green light next to his name, so is that just the fact they've not changed tyres? I think it might be the fact they've not changed tyres, which you have to do. Maybe, but I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there. I don't really know, because that's my job. Well, it's not, but you know what I mean. I'm sure Castanera's been in, and Botti definitely has been in. Maybe it's to do with the tyres, I'm not really sure. Yeah,
you are correct on that one, but also Botti's not next to some of the people that I thought he would have been next to as well.
But maybe... Sorry, he would have been with the leaders, roughly.
Yeah, so maybe that was a drive-through penalty, or maybe, as you say, it is just the non-tyre change, which would have saved some time in the pit stop as well. But of course then he'll need to do it at the next pit stop to fulfill the requirements. As now Mosin 15th place, getting on the back of Brown here, trying to get himself up towards 14th place in this Corvette, looking towards the inside, is able to get there down the inside. The Audi is going to try and break though all the way around the outside, with Brown able to just fight it a little bit, but not enough to hold on, as we see Mosin there up into 14th place, trying to come back from that drive-through penalty a bit earlier on. And he's actually about 6 seconds behind Zabdir. So at this moment in time, Mosin is looking to get back up to the guy he was fighting earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just noticed at the bottom of the screen, by the way, Kulas has been disqualified for something. Not entirely sure what that was about. Of course, one other retirement to speak of, Kasparink, who lost connection earlier on in this race. However, I'm not sure what happened to Kulas to give him a disqualification there in this race. But he has been, and I don't know why. But either way, he's out of the race now to join Kasparink. But so far, only 2 retirements, which is great to see. given that we're nearly halfway into this one now and have not had very many retirements at all.
Yeah, the DQ is a bit of an interesting one, and it looks like it was to do with the incident limit potentially, which is not ideal because obviously we're only halfway into the race. So getting to that limit so early obviously means there's been a lot of invalidated laps and collisions along the way, and we're being told maybe even 38 laps. That's a lot.
Well,
if that is the case.
It's obviously not the full laps invalid because there's only been 30 laps so far. However, 38 breaches of the rule, if you see what I mean, breaches of the track limits. 60 limit for this, 60 incident limit for this server, because it is a very high class server in terms of the drivers that are within it at the moment. So they're expected to drive a bit better, as you would, and so the incident limit is relatively low. However, that is still, as you say, a really quick reaching of that limit from Kulas, because for the other servers it's 80 and 100, which make things just that little bit easier for the less skilled drivers in terms of the rating, etc. Meanwhile, Latkovsky, one of those right up towards the front in terms of rating and one of the very best here on RaceRoom. He looks like he's going to make this one-stop strategy work. However, he's only got a 17-second advantage over Drobosikov at the moment, and I do still think the odds are stacked wildly against him. And I just wonder what would have happened in this race if he went out and really went for it. However, he saved so much fuel. He's even got a lap to spare here.
And this is good because this gives him a lap sort of comfort in terms of the time, because he's gone just over the 1 hour 12, which is obviously pretty perfect with the time. But if you can go further, that means that you don't have to worry about any sort of extra laps if the leader crosses the line with just a couple of seconds to go. So that is going to work out as Grutter, and the two Mackenbergs are in, and we're going to be seeing Latkovsky go out. This explains it the whole time, why he was a bit slower. It doesn't make sense to be 1/10 off pole and then to be a second a lap off in the race. So we had to be considering something like this, and surely it's going to be this lap indeed for Latkovsky. But I wonder how that is going to work out in terms of position, because as you say, he was in second place. So once this all works out, he needs to be just behind Drobosikov. But at the moment, Drobosikov is only 15 seconds back, and of course, these guys both need to make a pit stop still. However, Drobosikov is going to be miles faster.
Yeah, and another second and a half taken out of the race leader last time out, with another 17.6 from Drobosikov. That would have gotten you a very good place in the qualifying session, actually. And he's just churned it out in the race with relatively quite a lot of fuel on board. The other disadvantage that Latkovsky has as well is the fact that when he comes out of the pit lane, he's going to be around Sven Mackenberg, and if he gets in front of Mackenberg, then he might be all right. But if he falls backwards any further, he'll be up towards the likes of Pulasek, the Marvin Mackenberg, Zabdir, Rear, Mosin, Grotz, Brown. All of those drivers are going to end up slowing him up if he ends up in a really big fight over those places. And that's a fight that Drobosikov won't be having with anybody, because he'll be in the lead by a few seconds. As speaking of this train, side by side briefly there between those two.
And that's quite important. On Mackenberg, before the stops and everything, was behind Zabdir by a good couple of places, but now he is ahead, and Zabdir is behind into 11th place as it stands. But of course, a couple of pit stops I think still needs to be taken ahead of them. Zabdir now back down the inside, in towards the hairpin. He's done that a couple of times, and he's able to get his Corvette back up ahead, but the bending of Marvin Mackenberg is not going to be going anywhere and will be coming back at him. And these guys are quite a way behind Sven now, about 5 seconds behind, and there's also Botti, another 15 seconds up the road. So maybe Botti, just didn't change tyres at that stop.
I think he certainly didn't, and Castanera as well definitely didn't change tyres there, because he is miles in front of these guys now. Pulasek as well, he has been in as Pulasek, but he didn't change tyres, and so that is why he is in this group now. And after not long after getting overtaken by Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg, he's already a second and a half behind, as Latkovsky finally surrenders to the inevitable and comes into the pit lane. It will certainly be a tyre change for him this time, because it will be the only stop he is making in this race at all. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Cam, because you've been doing all the 2.4 hours as well as me, but you might have a better memory than me, I don't know. I don't think we've seen anybody even attempt a one-stop yet. I don't really remember it. Certainly not a significant player in a race that's not attempting it yet. The Bathurst 2 hour, obviously, everyone did, because that's the done thing. However, in the 2.4, I don't remember any significant player in those races actually even attempting it, never mind pulling it off.
That is a very good question indeed. Of course, we had the Nürburgring 2.4 hours, and actually Daytona was 2.4 as well. It's just Bathurst that was the single 2 hour event. To say the truth, I don't actually remember the exact strategies of some of these drivers, but because it is a little bit difficult, around this track is an interesting one to do because you have so much time where you're flat out, and even in the middle sector we were mentioning earlier how it's momentum based, so you need to stay on the throttle to keep that momentum up. So to save that amount of fuel is certainly a good achievement, and to keep the speed by doing that as well. And here's Lekowski, where he has come out. He's 52 seconds behind, and of course needs a pit stop like Drovesekov. Actually no, he doesn't need a pit stop, I should say. So Drovesekov owes a pit stop, but he will have a shorter pit stop. So we'll have to see how that one works out. We've seen it being over a minute for a pit stop normally, so this one could be quite close. But as you say, Lekowski now is going to be dropping back, and he's going to be having fights with people around him who potentially don't fully understand the situation and might fight him a little bit harder than he would have wanted.
I think they'll just fight him anyway, because looking at the way this group has behaved so far, it's all been about the battles. I guess good thing is the fact that he's found Sven Mackenberg again, and the two of them very like-minded in the fact that they're both trying to go to the end of the race now on this tank field, and they're both going to not fight each other. Mackenberg basically gifting Lekowski a bit of a slipstream at the moment, and the two of them might switch a little bit later on so that Lekowski returns the favour in the final 30 or 40 minutes or so. However, of all of the drivers to have found out there on the course, I think Lekowski has found the perfect dancing partner, if you like, in Sven Mackenberg right now. Nobody else around them. They've got to work on saving the fuel and, of course, keeping the others at bay. The likes of Pulasek, Zabdir, the other Mackenberg, Reid, Mosin, all of those guys. These two have to keep them away. However, Pulasek is not going to be able to do much about that because of his very old tyres.
Yeah, no, I would hold on, but he might be gaining something overall, of course, because although just look how close all those drivers are behind. There's about 4 or 5 drivers within 5 seconds behind, so it doesn't want to be dropping out too far, but obviously you save a lot of time, as it looks like is that him coming into the pit lane. Actually, it might just about be someone's coming into the pit lane in the background, which he just about is, so that's a bit unfortunate. But is actually him not stopping yet? Is that why he was up there? Because if so, he's done almost an hour and 20 minutes on that tank.
No, I think he did stop. I just think he didn't change tyres there in that race. Nobody's going berserk at me in the YouTube chat for that prediction, so I'm going to tentatively suggest it might be right. But Pulasek certainly will be changing tyres now. I think he's realised that 1 hour 5 is kind of comfortable for him to push flat out, and if he changes tyres now, then he'll be able to go to the end. Same with Pakalainen as well, who further down the field also didn't change tyres. Now they've realised they can fill up, go to the end on that set of tyres, and they've roughly, as best they can, split this race in half in terms of tyres, which is always the difficulty. Castanera won't be too far from the pit lane either, because Hoyt recently got through on him for 4th position. Castanera and Botti also have not changed tyres in this race just yet. They'll be in to do that pretty soon, and so everybody will have changed tyres in the field. And then the pit window is pretty much going to be open for everybody to pit when they like and go to the end from there. That's what the great thing about these races is, that we will have about half an hour, 40 minutes of potential pit stop window.
Yeah, it's great to see that, as you say, especially once we go another couple of laps and get within that final hour, it's going to be, easy for anyone to get to the end as well without thinking of their strategy. The important point will be how much fuel they need to take, because obviously it depends on how much fuel they have in their tank as well. As you have a yellow sector 2, it was like Arend has had a bit of an issue at 19th place, lost a couple of positions, now goes down to 20th as well. I'm not sure if he's had a big accident somewhere, but that potentially maybe in Puon or a corner like that, that's going to be a big one, and that's going to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, not sure where he has ended up on the circuit, but he's not moving anyway from that position. He finally has got going again in 20th place. but it's a lot further down than where he was earlier. Mohsin right on the back of Sebastian Rear here, and you'd expect to see these two fighting quite possibly, but maybe not for a position outside of the top 10, but that's the situation they found themselves in. Rear, I'm not sure, in a particularly favourable car, and Mohsin with that drive-through penalty that has really set him back quite dramatically. The two side by side once again, and it looks like the McLaren going to have its nose in front into La Source, but not through. A little bit deep into the corner for the Corvette, and Sebastian Rear's going to get a nice run off of the corner and get back through once again.
Yeah, this is a great battle to see. Mohsin has been just making up some places, having some good battles since he dropped down, and he's really getting close towards Zabdir, who he was batting with earlier, which is great to see. This driver make his way back from a drive-through penalty. But now let's see Mohsin getting the slipstream up towards Lecombe, diving it towards the right-hand side, potentially underneath the brakes, right on the outside, but Mohsin able to slide past comfortably there, actually, up into 11th place, and is really working his way back towards that sort of 8th position or so that he was fighting for earlier.
Right, it's comfortable for now, but let's see later on in the lap whether it still will be. Here's Latkovsky. It was a low 19 again, so he's clearly pushing on here. Close to his personal best, but, well, I say pushing on, he's still a second and a half away from Drobišikov's best at race pace, so can't get too giddy about that for the moment, even though it is still a very good time. But yeah, Latkovsky is going to struggle here. I mean, he's nearly a minute behind Drobišikov. Driving through the pit lanes 20 to 25 seconds. Are we assuming that Drobišikov still has 30 seconds of fuel to take on? I'm not so sure already.
Yeah, it's also not good because he's lost about 4 or 5 seconds, maybe more, since the pit stop as well. Obviously just losing some time. The good thing for him is that he's behind a driver, so he will be saving a bit of fuel in that slipstream, and will obviously be able to just lift off that a little bit, although he's just dropped back a couple of tenths further than he probably would like to get the full benefit of that. But it's still going to be a gain, which is what he needs to maybe save now, so that later on in the race, once the other guys make their second pit stop, he potentially can fight. As we've got Botti already into the pit lane. I think this is what you were mentioning. The drivers who didn't take tyres on that first stop are going to be coming in a bit earlier to make sure that they can do so. As we're seeing Arendt here, the driver who dropped back, and Troiters has got past him as well. Arendt now down into that 21st position.
Yeah, Arendt and Troiters have been fighting quite hard, actually, over this lap. They've been exchanging positions once or twice, but you can see that 2 minute 41, and that's not an outlap. That's just 20 seconds down for whatever reason. Not entirely sure why he had such problems during that previous lap, but he's right back on it once again now, I think. Into the bus stop chicane, a little bit wide from the Corvette. Let's see Arandt's time over the line here, because it will really indicate to us if he's back up to speed again. He pretty much is. A 22.1 would be consistent with a driver who is in a bit of a fierce battle at the moment, as Botti comes out the pit lane, and this is not good news for the Italian. He's just gotten beaten out here by a couple of drivers, and he's going to be dragged into yet another train.
Yeah, Botti, that's not the ideal place to come out, is it? He's going into a battle for position, and he's obviously one of the first guys to do this second stop, and is just going to be losing time from this. And Arendt is obviously going to be starting to try and fight this as well, after not wanting to give up that position after losing that lap time earlier. As Botti sends it though down the inside a little bit late, but he's actually been able to make that work around the outside of the second part of this chicane. Now into the third. Is he going to be still side by side? Yes, he is, but that'll be the inside now for the hairpin. Space given on the exit as well, as Botti now dives it towards the inside. But it looks like Arendt's going to be holding it around the outside, but no, Botti comes back mid-corner, trying to push him wide, and he just about manages to slide through there. But that is obviously an important overtake for him in that battle for the sort of top 6, top 7 that he's really fighting for.
Yeah, it's very difficult for him as well, because Arendt is going to want to try and get back through, as he nearly did into Pouon there. Still waiting for Castanera to come into the pit lane as well, and he's going to be even further behind. He might even be behind the likes of Parvan at the end of this. Oh dear.
Wait.
Well, that was connection problems.
Oh.
That might have been a clue as to what happened earlier, although I'm not entirely sure. I think there was an actual issue for Arendt last time. Not that connection issues aren't actual issues, but you know what I mean. He's still running at least in that 21st position right now. Battle for 9th place also going on between Marvin Mackenberg and Alex Moysen. Moysen really recovering well from that drive-through. It does make you wonder a little bit what could have been without that drive-through penalty though, because he's recovering very well. He's back inside the top 10. But where could he have been without that drive-through? Maybe top 5, maybe even podium.
Whereas Daniel Hebo there gets a drive-through penalty for ignoring slow down warnings, and he's already down in 31st place, a lap down, and that is not going to help his afternoon at all. And yeah, just a bit more of a disappointing race than I'm sure he would have wanted to do, as we're now of course into the final hour of this 2.4 of Spa, and Mosin, as you say, back up into the sort of positions that he should be. And now, I mean, you can see Zabdir just 2 cars ahead, and Mosin's really gained a lot of time. He would be up with the likes of Letkovsky and Sven Mackenberg had he not done that, which is a bit of a shame to see. But of course, the entertainment of him coming back through is just as good as well. But now, first of all, he's got Marvin Mackenberg to try and get past.
Absolutely. He was around about here when he got that drive through in this fight, so yeah, he's been quite well matched to these guys now. When he was a bit further down the field, he would have been a bit overpowering really, and would have made moves with ease, but these are going to be more thought out, more drawn out, and a little bit more difficult for Alex Mosin inside the top 10 right now. He's already dispatched of some very big names like Sebastian Rie earlier on. Now he's going to have to deal with the first of the Mackenbergs, 8 seconds behind his brother at this stage, down towards the bus stop chicane, and he will stay behind. And we're also at that point in the race where drivers might be starting to wonder, what happens if I come in early and try and do it that way? Well, if you're stuck behind a driver in front, then you can just always come into the pit lane, fill up to the end, and then go from there. So that's exactly what Alex Mosin's going to attempt to do right now. He comes into the pit lane, he'll try and get into clean air, and he'll try to overtake Marvin Mackenberg the faster way, if you like. He won't lose time doing this, ideally, but we'll see if it works out for him.
Yeah, and of course, these drivers now who are starting to do their second pit stops are really going to be hoping that when they can sort of work their way through, or work themselves out in the field, I should say, once everyone else makes a pit stop, that of course they have gained. But of course, it's a difficult situation to work that one out, as he comes out in 17th place and is already in a battle with Vertrich there, and is quite a way ahead of Botti actually, so seems to have worked out pretty okay for Alex Mosin, and of course I think is going to be working out even better by the end of the race. Such is his pace, as we're seeing this battle with Sven Mackenberg and Letkovsky now. And it seems that he's really able to sit behind now as Letkovsky. He dropped off just a little bit, and he will then obviously be able to save a bit more fuel, which is really his strategy today. It seems like he's going for this one-stop strat. He was in second place, so his gap that he's really looking out for is that one to Drovosekov. And Drovosekov, they had that battle on the first lap, but then ever since, Letkovsky dropped down a bit, and he really was able to work out the fuel strategy that he needed. However, he lost a lot of time from that, and that's why he's so far back. But of course, Drovosekov owes a pit stop, and in the last one he gained about 5 seconds on Mayer, and then on the track he's gained about another 7. So Mayer in this second stint hasn't quite had the pace of his first one.
Yeah, not entirely sure why. I mean, the seconds will have been gained by Drovosekov by under-fueling slightly, so that could be pointed towards a reason. However, the amount of time that Drovosekov has been gaining surely doesn't point towards just a weight difference between the cars. Either way, Letkovsky now is starting to step on it a little bit more. 1 minute is the lead of Drovosekov over Letkovsky, so I still think it's too much. However, the Macedonian is just pushing on a little bit further as Castanera comes into the pit lane, the final driver to have changed tyres here in this race. And so now everybody is on a new set and probably won't be changing again throughout this one. Very rarely see 2 tyre changes in the same race here. Letkovsky in the slipstream though, Is there going to be a move, or is there going to be a waiting process here? It looks like it's going to be the waiting once again. A little bit of time gained there by the lot of them. Now 58 seconds to driver Sikov. It's an interesting gap to watch go up and down at this stage. But it's really hard to know where everybody's going to filter out. And it will remain so for the next half an hour, really.
Yeah, the guys who pit so late will obviously then have such a short stop at the end. They might be pitting with, only 20 minutes to go in the race. So we, as you say, we might have obviously drivers pitting now for their final pit stops, but then we might have drivers in over 30 minutes time also pitting for their final pit stop. So much strategic option here in these 2.4 hour races. It's a very nice format. And it's long enough as well to be an endurance race for these individual drivers. There's no driver swaps or anything like that. It's just these single drivers going to the end of the race, as D'Amico in 27th place is in the pit stop, but also one lap down now. And I think, back to Lakovsky, I think it's working out really well for him with this slipstream, but I just don't know about the pace and the gap to Drovosekov.
The gap's extending out again. But Meyer has dropped down to third all of a sudden. Why is he dropped so far down all of a sudden as Luca D'Amico gets a drive-through penalty for speeding? Meyer all of a sudden drops behind Kunz, and there's no real obvious indication of quite why. He was definitely struggling as he came out of the pit lane for some reason. Losing time to Drovosekov, and clearly something more drastic has happened on the last lap, because a 2:26 is very slow compared to what he's done previously.
Yeah, Master just had a bit of a spin as he's diving down the inside there through Malmedy. Actually, just about able to hold on, but not quite on the exit. That was very close indeed. I thought there was going to be a bit of a crash there initially with just how he sent it, because it wasn't really a braking zone, but now coming through the hairpin as well, trying to get back up. Mayer's really starting to look aggressive now down the inside of no-name corner. Once again, getting his notes there, but not enough to make an overtake as Kunz really holds on to that. And this strategy has actually worked out so well from Kunz, it seems. Of course, he was gifted a place there with Mayer, but he just put himself well away from the cars behind, and for now it is working out. Unfortunately, we can't get replays of these sorts of things, but Mayer has obviously lost some time, and it's just a bit of a shame because that really puts him out of contention for this race victory.
It really has done. Over 20 seconds adrift now, and the battle is going to be more focused on this fight for second, which is going to be equally as entertaining by the looks of things. Kunz not going to give this one up very easily. Meyer not going to go down without a fight either. Oh my word, that was a slide through the curb pull Frere, and he gathered it up, although it won't be the best run on the kind of always twisting straight towards the bus stop, if that's not too much of an oxymoron for you. Down towards the final chicane we go, and the inside is opened up by Kunz there, and Meyer doesn't want to go through there, so there's a real game of cat and mouse going on here. And now into the pit lane for Kunz. He was trying to make sure he didn't get dived, and so tried to let Meyer through. In the end, Meyer didn't want to, and so they both lost a bit of time there, but it doesn't matter too much. The battle will resume later between those two, as Meyer goes exceptionally wide into La Source. That was not on purpose.
Yeah, Mayer's going to have such a short pit stop as he bottoms out there on the sausage curve. I don't think he was able to steer too easily back onto the track there, as Kunz, he really tried to let Meyer through down the inside, but Meyer obviously just didn't quite read the situation, because to be honest, they were having such a big battle. Who would? And Kunz is now going to be dropping down with that really early stop initially, and he pretty much sort of cut the race into thirds with how he's done it, compared to some other people cutting the race into two or anywhere in between. And he will now have a pretty average pit stop here to the end, but of course, like Mayer, will have shorter, so it just depends if he's going to be able to gain enough time from being in a certain track position, as Latkovsky once again right behind Mackenberg, but we don't expect an overtake because he is fuel safe.
We don't, but we are getting fast lap times, a mid-18 on that last lap, and all of a sudden they're not losing time anymore to Drovosekov. They're not really gaining, but they're not losing, and that is a better situation than they found themselves in earlier on. The little bit of help down the straight as well is giving them a bit of time as well from Drovosekov, who's driving completely on his own here. Let's not forget the leader will be going through some lap traffic at this stage as well. These two will not be, because they're nearly a minute behind, so maybe there's still a chance for these two. Sven Bakkenberg and Cody Lepkowski certainly know what they're doing, and we've been doubting them so far in this race, really, in their strategy, particularly Lepkowski, given the pace he showed in qualifying. However, they might be about to show us why we're not driving by winning this race. I mean, it's entirely possible still.
Yeah, I mean, the strategic options are certainly opening themselves up, which is what we like to see, and we won't know until all the final pit stops are there, and then we see the pace of the drivers and where they are with their tyre wear and things like that as well. Because that's one thing with Lepkowski going so long. Of course, he will effectively actually be lighter for longer in the race because he's stretching it, but then he will also be on worn tires for longer in the race. So that potentially might be not a benefit to him as we're getting Quinten Meyer now into the pit lane, and Meyer is behind, but I think that's just because of where their pit boxes are, and hopefully Meyer will come out ahead and hasn't lost another position, because that would not help his race.
No, as if it isn't already going a little bit wrong at this stage. He was hoping to challenge for the win here, and that's all of a sudden fallen apart a little bit. He just leaves the pit lane now, and he will be in front of Kunz, you'd imagine. Already out the pit lane. How on earth has he managed that? Half a minute ahead of Kunz. Surely there's been a pit stop. A tyre change from his competitor there, whereas Meyer hasn't taken one there, because that's a huge gap all of a sudden.
Yeah, certainly that is been a huge change in the course of this race as well, because there's 46 minutes left, and that is a long gap to catch back up as well. So yeah, I just wonder if that is maybe a mistake here or there, but we'll have to see how that one works out, of course. We were expecting the drivers to have a really short final stop to maybe not take tyres as well, but obviously there's still 46 minutes left, so it's not quite as short as we potentially were expecting.
There's a bit of disagreement with regards to whether to take tyres or not, as Gra is off in the middle sector, I'm afraid. You can see him dropping down a couple of... Oh, there he is. Oh, is that Meyer?
I think so.
Oh dear, Meyer was off as well. I think the two of them may have been connected, quite possibly, although maybe not at the same time. That's Burkhardt just in front of Meyer at the moment, and for some reason, somehow, some way, he ended up around at the hairpin of Bruxelles. It just hasn't been his race.
It has not, some by his own, and some by things that other people have been doing potentially. But that could have just been a bit of miscommunication as well, as Gra is in the pit lane, as we had a yellow in sector 2 for some time. Didn't quite see who that was, as he's sliding once again on the exit. And yeah, I just wonder, it's this race unravelling a bit for Meyer as he goes on to the gravel as well. Just maybe not in the same headspace that he was earlier on, and now behind Lepkowski as well, who's going to the end. So Meyer needs to get that place on track.
May well do. But we saw this towards the end of the previous stint from Meyer, who was already struggling in terms of the oversteer, just keeping the car on the road. And now, with the older tyres and slightly heavier, more fuel on board, he really is starting to suffer with it a little bit, as Lepkowski now for the first time pulls alongside Bakkenberg. Will he make his way through? No, he lifts off down the straight there, but flashes the lights. But is that a flash of the lights as if to say, get the hell out of the way, please? Or is it a flash of the lights to say, can we go a bit faster and work together here? It's hard to know, really.
Yeah, I think obviously Bakkenberg will be on older tyres by this point, but then also a bit lower fuel. So it just depends which one is the biggest trade-off. But yeah, I think Lepkowski just wants to be pulled along, and Bakkenberg's been making a couple of mistakes here and there. And I don't think Lepkowski is going to want to make this overtake. He's going to want to hold on to this position, as I said, to save a bit of fuel, to make sure at the end he can push. But no, he's actually half looked there down the inside. But maybe by now he knows that Meyer is behind, and he might need to go for this position.
Let's see, he's so close to the back of the Bentley. I think he has to go at this point, though. I know he's enjoying the fuel saving that the Bentley is allowing him to do at the moment, but he's got to go at some point. He has to go, because let's not forget, once he gets into the green with the fuel, and once he saves enough fuel to get to the end, he won't be able to kind of use up the fuel that if he saves extra, he won't be able to use it up. It will just be sat in the tank at the end of the race, and there'll have been no point in saving it. So there'll just become a point where he's actually done enough in this race in terms of fuel saving, and he'll be able to push on once and for all. But at the moment, he seems very reluctant to actually even see the road in front of him. He wants to stay tucked up behind this Bentley for as long as possible.
Yeah, I mean, he went something along the lines of an hour and 14, hour and 15 minutes. And the thing with that is he was saving a lot of fuel. That's 25% extra that he has gone compared to some other people. So that is a lot of fuel saving. So I do think he has a lot to save. And if he can then get to a point where he can go flat out to the end, I think that is really what he's trying to do. But of course, that is a big jump and a big difference to get to. You are right, though. It will get to a point where he has saved too much, and therefore will just have extra weight towards the end. But maybe at some point he's just hoping Mackenberg's going to get out of the way, and he's going to, judge that as the time that he needs to start pushing. But Mayer is behind and will be coming for him.
He will. And let's just remember as well, Kevin Mayer came out in front of these two. I know he had that spin at Bruxelles, whatever, but if Drovisikov doesn't take tyres, which I'm assuming he won't in this final pit stop, he will be he would have been 10 seconds, more than 10 seconds in front of Mayer, which is, a good, 15, 20 seconds in front of these guys. So I think already they're kind of battling for podium places, but even then it's going to be difficult for them. Holding back the likes of Mayer, I think we're going to see the Kunz and Hunt again, quite possibly, because they'll have new tyres on. So they'll have a lot of defending to do wherever they end up. But let's not forget they are the first two on the road of those who don't have to stop again. So they do have that. But there's also looming Drovisikov at the moment, who I don't think is going to be challenged again in this race unless something goes really wrong for him. I mean, his pit stop is not going to take more than a minute for me.
Yeah, I think it will also be less than a minute, so he will come back out into the lead, and I mean, they're not going to catch him just on the pure pace. So Drovisikov is in a really good position as we hit lap 44. Drovisikov actually comes in to the pit lane, and let's see right now, is Sven Mackenberg going to be able to catch up with Latkovsky, or is Drovisikov going to come out nicely into the race lead? We predict that he will be there at the front, but let's see how that one works out. He obviously only needs to take about 45 minutes of fuel to be safe, so about 3/4 of a tank or so, and therefore he will be nicely in the lead, we think, with a shorter pit stop.
Yeah, let's see. I think it all comes down to whether he takes tyres here or not for Drovisikov. If not, then he will be out in the lead here. But if he does, he will not be too far behind these guys, you would imagine. But let's see. He might be out close to them. Coming out towards the bus stop chicane for Sven Mackenberg and Cody Nikola Latkovsky. Are they going to be able to overtake Ilya Drovisikov or not? He's still in the pit lane here. Is he going to leave just in time, or is he going to have to overtake them? He's going to leave just in time here, inside of turn one, and there he is. He's going to come out almost agonisingly close to Sven Mackenberg and Nikola Latkovsky. There it is, there's the gap. Drovisikov has the lead here. He doesn't have another pit stop to do, and it's going to be his race from here, surely. He's just got to control this margin from now until the checkered flag.
But we also saying there that he didn't change tyres, so maybe he might struggle towards the end, but I think either way he's going to have a really nice run towards the line, because we believe Mackenberg still needs a pit stop. Is that correct? Or does he not?
He came in exactly at 1:12, so I think he might be alright. But you are right in the fact that the two behind have newer tyres on, yes, but it's a question of how much fuel saving they still have to do, and how much can they push on at this stage, and can they even catch Drovisikov, because that's a difficulty in itself.
Yeah, certainly is. And Mayer is a lot closer than he was before, even with that spin.
Well, yeah.
Which is very interesting. So if he hadn't done that, then
he's out the race now. Sorry, he's out the race now. Completely gone. Not entirely sure whether there was a crash there or something else, but Kevin Mayer, after such a good race, has now DNF'd and becomes our fourth retirement of the race so far. We'll try and get to the bottom of what happened there, but that is such a shame for the German, who was odds on for maybe battling at least for a podium there.
Yeah, he certainly was. And I wonder if Drovosekov pitted. I'm just trying to work out how he lost a bit of time there in comparison, but it doesn't really matter because he's kept the lead either way for his own battle. As it looks like Lapnik there got past Mosen. Mosen drops outside the top 10, and that's such a shame for Mayer. He had such a good race there, had such good pace, managed to pass Drovosekov there in that first stint, but since that first pit stop, it has just not gone his way at all. And he joins the list with Rebello, Kaspering and Kulas to be out of this race.
Yeah, let's not forget that Drovosekov took on less fuel at the first round of stops than Mayer did, which is why he came out 5 seconds in front, so he will have had to regain that back and will have had to put more in on that pit stop. That's why he lost so much time, I think. However, it doesn't really matter now because Kevin Mayer's out of the race. Kunz down the inside of Sebastian Rear, then into the bus stop chicane, and that's going to be an easy move. 7th place now for Kunz, and the question remains where he can get up to by the end of this race, because he's got about 25 seconds to the leader Drovosekov, and a little bit less to Mackenberg and Lepkowski. Can he regain that podium place that he held before the pit stop?
He might have enough time to be able to do that, to be honest. And I wonder if Latkovsky at some point is going to dive down the inside. And yeah, you might be right about Sven Mackenberg. Was expecting potentially to come back again, but it's going to be a long stop either way for him. And we're going to need to see now Latkovsky diving down the inside. He's going to be finally doing this down the inside of the head, but no, he backs out of it. I thought he was going to be sending it, just maybe trying to get Mackenberg offline, but Mackenberg makes that corner nicely. And I do wonder what Latkovsky's tactics are here, but they do have a nice gap now to Zabdir in 4th place.
They do, and I believe Zabdir still has to come in as well with Mackenberg and Grote as well, who will probably have to come into the pit lane, although they look like they're going for the strategy of pitting as late as possible, so they don't have to change tyres again, and they can keep the fuel load as light as possible throughout the remainder of the race. But let's see that when they come in, there's still more than 35 minutes to go, and still nearly 5 seconds to this group of 2. Through the middle sector, they do lose quite a lot of time to Ilya Drovosekov, but I do feel like Lepkowski, he believes if he gets in front of Mackenberg here, he might be able to give the leader a run for his money, but there's no point in sitting behind here and not trying. He might as well give it a go, but he's got to get past Sven Mackenberg first.
Yeah, he certainly does, and he's been sat there for quite a while now. He certainly knows every little edge and vertice of that Bentley rear end for sure. And at some point he is going to have to try and make that move, but there's still plenty of time left for him to do this at a convenient time for him. The issue is, we've seen with that Bentley, it seems to be quite strong on the straights, and I think that potentially is another reason why he hasn't got past just yet, because he's been close a couple of times but hasn't been able to perfect that move.
Maybe, oh, he's so close on the exit of La Source there. Almost pushing the Bentley down the hill now towards Eau Rouge and towards losing that second place, you would imagine. Up the hill again for the 47th time asking. It's a little bit offline from the Bentley there, but Lepkowski might even be a little bit too close, as we were talking about earlier. Mackenberg doesn't defend and Lepkowski doesn't attack once again. I'm surprised about that, given the way that he showed the nose on the run down the hill towards Bruxelles on that last lap. I thought he was intending to go through here and maybe push on himself, but apparently not. Apparently he wants to stay behind still. Maybe he's not quite done with fuel saving just yet.
Yeah, and with Mackenberg going a similar length as well, that is going to be an interesting one for him, because he's going to have to do the same fuel saving but without the slipstream of the car ahead.
Yes, and he's got, let's not forget, one more lap as well, because he came in a lap earlier than Lepkowski that last pit stop cycle, and only pit stop cycle for these guys, so he's got more to do and no slipstream to do it in, which is going to be difficult for Sven Mackenberg, you would imagine. The gap goes to over 5 seconds to the leader. At what point though do they just stop worrying about Drovosekov here and start focusing more on whether they can get a podium or not here? I think Mackenberg may already be in that mindset, but Lepkowski, given that he qualified in second, might not think or might not give up on the race win dream just for the moment.
Yeah, their problem is Drovosekov has pulled away since the pit stop, so he's got the pace to defend from these guys whatever happens. I would say And that's obviously a bit of a shame for these guys. And Lekowski, the main point for him, as we mentioned earlier, is getting back to that second place, because if he doesn't, then he might as well have done the same two-stop strategy as everyone else.
Yeah, I think Lekowski's going to be disappointed with this race, but you never know until we speak to them afterwards and find out what they think. Obviously, we won't get to speak to them on the stream, but hopefully we'll pick up a few things here and there afterwards. But yeah, it's not. I don't think Lekowski would be particularly pleased, especially after already having won the Bathurst 2 Hour earlier on this year at the expense of Drobosek, of course, who's looking to put that result right here today. As you can see, they're not exactly going slowly. 18.7 from Lekowski that time. And this is while he's in the slipstream and potentially saving that little bit of fuel as well in the final just over half an hour here. We run up towards Lecom again. And Lekowski stays behind again. While he's all, saving fuel, and he's still doing 2:18, so it's not slow by any means, and he is putting more time into those behind.
Yeah, I think that's why he is sitting there, so comfortably, and why he was flashing Mackenberg earlier, to just do some nice laps and just try and, get towards the end of the race in a nice position. They've still got that nice gap to Zabdir, so it's obviously working out, and I think that's why he's not stressing too much at this moment in time. And it doesn't look like Zabdir is going to be making, inroads on that gap anytime soon either. So. Yeah, seems to be a pretty decent place for him. But Hennig now is in the pit lane, as Giordano also was getting in their final pits, obviously almost half an hour to go. And obviously I wonder if we're going to be seeing anything else strategic-wise happen. We're still waiting for Kunz to try and work his way back up towards the podium battle.
We are, and he's remained at about 20 seconds behind. He's now 18 seconds behind, but he's not really gaining much with those new tyres. So that's going to be worrying for him. There he is in the BMW. I mean, so far in this year with these events, I think one pit stop, one tyre change generally prevails, and splitting this race into thirds and making 2 tyre changes, I think is a little bit too much, because at the end of about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, you've not really used much of the tyre. There's still plenty left in it. So if you do change tyres, I think you're better off doing it just once, because twice is maybe a bit much. You maybe lose a bit too much time.
Yeah, and the thing is that everyone has to make a stop for tyres, of course. So your gain of those newer tyres is only in one stint as well. So we're going side by side now. Lekowski for this second place on the exit of turn number 1. Obviously got a bit of a run, but let's Mackenberg have the lead up the hill. And now the McLaren is going to be getting that slipstream all the way up the Kemmel straight. Is a long straight indeed, but he's a bit close actually to get a really big slingshot effect. So is he just going to be lifting off and not giving us the battle? No, he's looking towards the inside, thinking about it, but this time not diving it down the inside on Mackenberg. So I wonder if Mackenberg's just starting to feel a bit of the pressure now, or if it's Lekowski who's turning it up.
Yeah, not really sure, because the lap times aren't changing. The lap times are normally the biggest indicator, and they're not changing. We're still in the mid to high 18s here with these two. But you can be sure with the slipstream, Lekowski's got to be saving a bit of fuel here, so there might just be a bit of a gain in that. But either way, 2 of them running wide through no-name corner there, and we'll continue to try and hold on to this podium place. But eventually, when they do start fighting later, it is going to be an exciting battle between the two. We're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for it to happen. I think even if they're not fuel saving, they might wait a bit longer just so that they don't let anybody else catch them at this stage, because they are running pretty quickly nose to tail like this.
Yeah, it's working, because Mackenberg's obviously got some good pace on him. I'm just concerned about that fuel to the end, but I guess that is obviously something that he's pretty comfortable with. Otherwise, he probably would have tried to let Lekowski go ahead at some point in this stint. And as you say, their pace is still good, so it doesn't seem to matter at this moment in time. So they go past another car there, putting a lap on them as Heusemann is into the pit lane, and Lekowski is not close enough this time once again, and is still going to be sitting there behind in that third place.
Just getting that wider entry to the final corner and a better run onto the front straight, but even in normal circumstances you wouldn't really attempt to move here unless you're Latkowski. nearly goes and shows the nose on the outside line there. See the revs just divvying off slightly on the way into Lassource, just to lift off, and he's so close to the back of the Bentley, almost too close, and that Bentley of course is very strong in a straight line, which is not helping the case of the McLaren here. But either way, surely he's got to be able to find a way through over the top of the hill again, up towards the Kemmel Straight. I do actually think that Bentley, maybe it's just too quick in a straight line, although he is gaining a little bit in terms of top end speed as the Bentley reaches terminal velocity at the end of the straight there. Latkowski may well be struggling to get through purely on a straight line speed thing, and here through Malwood he's up right on the back of him. Maybe the look down the inside, the hairpin could be used, but he's not willing to. Judging by that onboard there, seeing the whole story down the whole straight, I mean, I can't hear the revs, but I don't think that Latkowski was lifting off much, if at all, there actually on that straight.
Yeah, maybe that is the maybe that is the reason. And he knows if he gets ahead, then Mackenberg is just going to steam past him. But for sure, he's putting on a lot of pressure. For now, Sven Mackenberg is holding on pretty nicely. He's been there for such a long time now. I mean, it's been pretty much the good half hour or so at least that Latkowski has been behind him, which is a lot of pressure that builds up. And the closer you get towards the end, that is going to be so important. As we're seeing a bit of a battle for Ray and Lapinick there for 9th and 10th place. They're side by side, it seems, swapping places all the time. As Mosin dropped off the back of that battle, he hasn't been able to get a bit back further up. But these two still side by side as we come into P1, and Lapinick they're up in towards 9th place as well. He's had a pretty good race today. He has.
Inside the top 10 for the moment. Very unsure though at this stage of the race who really has to come into the pit lane and who doesn't at this stage. As what is going on here? Sebastian Ritt, supposedly out the race, is driving. Oh no, sorry, that's just a graphic thing. Never mind. Sorry, that's Drabashikov. But we have seen the McLaren of Sebastian Ritt out of this race with just under half an hour to go. Don't know what happened to him. Didn't see him go off anywhere.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's some sort of disconnection or something that we saw a bit earlier on, because apparently that was why Kasperink, I don't think we mentioned it at the time, but apparently that's why Kasperink is out of this race, as we are seeing Latkowski get a bit of a closer run, at least, as we come towards Eau Rouge. The issue is, as I mentioned a few times, if you stay too close here, you don't get that slingshot effect because you don't have to slipstream for long enough to get the overspeed. So you just catch up to them at, like 1-2 kph difference. Whereas if you get the slingshot and you have to sort of 5 kph, you can actually, get past them as such. But unfortunately, he's sitting there behind for another lap.
Gonna have to. 8.5 seconds now, the gap to the leader, which is surely one that they're going to have to let go in their minds now. Surely they know they won't be able to close that unless something drastic happens to the leader. They're going to have to settle in this battle for second. Now, just to work this out, I think Zabdir, Marvin Mackenberg and Grant have to come into the pit lane, along with Mackenberg and, along with Lapinick and Mosin and Vigneron. I think all of these drivers have to come in. That will allow Castanera and Botti back into the top 10 again, but those drivers I just mentioned there are going to drop out of these positions, and it's going to be a case of whether Kunz and Huyck can actually close on these guys towards the end, and I think they're going to struggle to do that.
Yeah, we're getting towards that exact 2-hour mark, which would be a nice place for some people to pit, who are following on with the standard hour stint length that we've seen multiple times. But of course, today the strategy has been completely wide open. We've seen people do 45-minute stints, 50-minute stints, and we've also seen people go about an hour and 15 minutes. So there's a big window where you can have some opportunities. As we've seen Latkowski here coming towards Blanchimont, and you might be right there. He wasn't gaining loads and loads at that point, although the main gain is when you get towards the main sort of drag moments at the VMAX of the car. But it seems that Mackenberg hasn't really made a mistake yet. Latkowski's really struggling. He gets a good run here, but then Bentley has always a nice exit as we come towards turn 1.
Yeah, you just get on the outside towards La Source very often, but then it often has to slip in to line again. Mackenberg this time. Oh, and he hits the inside wall! Nicola Lefkowski hits the inside wall, and that's going to be it for that battle. He's going to hold on to third place, but he had finally a bit of an opening there. He forced Mackenberg to take a defensive line. He got himself the wide line and the potential run up towards the Kemmel Straight there. He tried to maximise it as much as possible. He hits the inside wall, and that will be that. Mackenberg surely is going to be able to hold on to this now, and Lapkowski's dreams of second place are going to be over with that mistake.
The only thing now is he's saved so much fuel. Does he have enough to push and gain back all that time? We'll have to find out. But yeah, that 4-second gap is such a shame for him, and he kind of lucky he's actually not more than that. You rarely see people touching the inside there of turn one, just because of the way that the corner is functioned. You're not trying to have the tightest line possible. You're actually trying to have the widest radius possible to get the exit speed. So very rare thing to see there. But unfortunately, Lakowski has come a cropper to that, as we go back to Zabdir, who is too far back really to also make a gain on that, but he's still ahead of Marvin Mackenberg, who's there in that 5th place, and they've got Grotta behind us at this moment in time.
Yeah, this is a close battle now, although they're kind of split into a pair of pairs, if you like. Zabdir versus Mackenberg, and then Grotta and Kunz just behind. Might be able to see the Bentley and the BMW just in the background of some of these shots. They've got lap cars involved at the moment, which is making things a little bit confusing. Luca D'Amico is the Audi in front, and the car just getting out the way there was Grant. The 26th position, all the way down there. My goodness, Kunz had his hands full there, although he's now right on the back of the Norwegian. Should be able to make his way through here. He's on new tyres and he's fueled to the end. Grunt is neither of those things, and so this pass will look easy, but he's got to do it efficiently here if he wants to get to the podium. 12 seconds is still the gap.
Yeah, and Grotta there having a bit of a defensive line. Is he not coming into pit lane just yet? But the Bentley, the BMW, I should say, needs to try and find a way past. And Kunz, as you see on those new tyres, needs to be making this work, because this is the whole point of him taking that extra tyre stop, is to have the ability to overtake. And he's actually not too far away from Zabdir, so I think this might actually work out pretty well. Talking of that, it looks like Mosin behind these guys has really dropped off in there in that 9th place, because he was trying to get back up in a similar position. But Kunz in 7th, that is the one to be looking, because he is in a place where he can get past Grotta and then still have the opportunity to get Mackenberg and Zabdir before the end of the race.
Yeah, not sure what's happened to Mosin at all, whether I'm just forgetting something or we missed something, as Guillaume Vigneron comes into the pit lane. Not a perfect day for him, I'm afraid, using the Mercedes here today once again, and not really getting to grips with Spa in that car, I'm afraid. Lapanik has been down the lower reaches of the top 10 as well. The Mercedes has not been one of the favourable cars here today. The Bentley and BMW certainly have, though. They're both battling over this 6th position right now. 2 seconds is the gap to the battle for 4th as well. But surely these drivers who haven't made their final stop yet have got to come in soon. We're over 2 hours into this race now, and their moment has got to come soon. Into the inside line goes Kunzen, Camper chicane, and you can just see even the difference of the tyres there. The Bentley nowhere near able to put up a defence even on the outside line there.
Yeah, it's not a position that he was really able to defend. The newer tyres was really working for Kunz up into that 6th place. And now just a couple of seconds behind Mackenberg as well. Some lap drivers in between, but he has just under 20 minutes. So we're looking in the region of sort of 9-10 laps to go in the race. And it is looking like that could be enough to get that time, but also to make the moves, which would put him back up into 4th place, which I don't think he would be too disappointed with.
Well, he can't be really, although it could have been a podium if he'd have played things a little bit differently. But then again, the strategy that Mackenberg and Lapkowski are going for is particularly tricky, you'd have to say. Let's not forget, Marvin Mackenberg and Zabdir came in relatively late in the pit stop cycle last time, so I'm unsure as to whether they will be stopping again. If they are, then it will be with only minutes to go, and they'll know exactly how many laps are remaining, and they'll have an exact number on fuel. But I do believe they'll still have to stop. It's very difficult to know, though. Even at this point, we're 80 minutes from the end. We don't know who has to come in. We don't know who still has to come in. We don't know who's staying out until the end. We don't know what tyres people are on. We don't know how old they are. We don't know how much fuel they've got in the car. And we don't know where they might end up towards the end either, even with this amount of minutes to remaining.
Yeah, it's great to see just how open this race has been. 2.4 hours is certainly a great format indeed, and that's why we've done it for a third time this year out of the four sort of special events that we have done. And it's great to see that is continuing with the action as well as we get towards the end of the race here. Kunze, just in the background, you can see really starting to close down now on the Marvin Backenberg and Zabdir battle here towards the front of the pack, and they've done such a good job so far. And after all this time, after over 2 hours of racing, they're still less than 30 seconds behind the leaders, which is a pretty good job considering just how fast and how easy the race has been for Drovosekov.
Well, I always hesitate to use the word easy when someone's won a race, because it's because I feel like that's me saying that I could do it as well, but or anyone could do it. But certainly for him, it would have been unchallenged, I suppose, is a good way of putting it. He hasn't really had a leading battle. Obviously, Kevin Mayer gave him a run for his money at the end of the first stint, and it would have been interesting in a mistake-free race for Mayer where he would have ended up, but unfortunately he didn't get that, and eventually crashed out in the end, actually, with contact. So, yeah, it's a shame. But, Drovosekov looks like he's going to be able to walk home to this win, as Latkovsky is just closing in that little bit on the Mackenberg in front.
Oh, as Kunze in the background, though, just so close now to the back. Kunze out so close to the back of Mackenberg, and really starting to get a run already as we come downhill towards Eau Rouge. And I don't think this battle is going to take too long, considering just the speed that he's got at this moment in time. As once again they go all over the curbs up through Radion. And is that going to be enough for Kunze to make this overtake stick? He's got the run, he's got the speed, he's got the tyres, but he just needs to get the space to dive it there down the inside in towards Les Combes maybe. But no, that Bentley seems to have good top speed to hold on to that one.
Yeah, it needs the straight line speed as well to get through on the Bentley, which is difficult as Mackenberg goes deep. Under brakes, maybe Mira watching a little bit too much, and Kunze is going to have a nicer run through Malmedy for a move maybe at the hairpin. Although he's close behind, he chooses the late dive to the inside instead, halfway alongside, sort of gets alongside now, and maybe he does just shove out Mackenberg towards the end of the corner, and so he makes his way through. He's into fifth, but I feel like he needs to make these moves a little bit more efficiently and a bit more quickly if he wants to get a podium here, because he's still got 13 seconds to close in only just over 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, the podium. Yeah, that's a good point actually. If he gets past quickly, he might have half a chance.
But he's not getting past quickly. That's the problem.
We'll have to see. He is about half a second quicker than Latkovsky, so I just don't know if he's going to have enough laps though either way to get that, but he at least will have half a chance if he can get past Zabdir, and it looks like he might be able to do it already within the next lap, as Zabdir is not able to keep the car in the places on the track that he wants. Kunze really just pulling away now. Those newer tyres really just working so well to his effect. And it seems like this strategy is going to be working out, at least getting this fourth place, but maybe the podium.
About 6 or 7 laps to go here for these drivers, as Kunze is already on the back of Zabdir after overtaking Mackenberg only a few corners earlier. Out the final corner and over the line to start lap 56 for these two. I think it's going to leave Kunze a bit too much to do, but he's certainly going to try. I think he absolutely has to get through on Zabdir this lap if he wants to make his way onto the podium here. He's got to make use of these new tyres, and those older ones for those around him are going to start to really wear at this stage. Mackenberg not too far behind. If there's an incident, he'll be right there to capitalise. Hopefully there isn't between the two. You never know. Kunze now in the slipstream of the Corvette. Is that BMW really able to do anything, or was it the Bentley's straight line speed that prevented him on the Kemmel straight last time out. He closes in. He's not close enough, is he? He's going to time it. Oh, it's a half-hearted one. He sort of thought about it and then decided against it at the end. And he might just have to wait a whole other lap, although he goes down the inside at Malmedy, which is a brave one. Oh, contact between the two of them. I don't think Zabdi is very pleased about that one, but Kunz has got his man anyway. He's got through, and now he's 12 seconds to close on Lapkowski before the end of this race. That was forceful, but it absolutely needed to be if he wants a podium.
Yeah, that was certainly a unbelievably aggressive move there down the inside of Malmedy. You don't often see a move there. It's such a tricky little corner, more tricky than it looks just on the track map, but he managed to make it work. Though it goes wide there next to Pouon, and I just think Zabdi didn't have the tyre grip there on the outside of the corner, but for sure I think it's probably put him out onto the curb a little bit as well. But now Zabdi needs to make sure he's not losing the place to Mackenberg, who's really his battle here, and both of those places on Marvin Mackenberg and Zabdir seem to be, as you say, just a little inefficient in terms of just how it works out. Will he have enough to get to Latkovsky? I'm not quite sure.
If these two fight, oh, then there might well be. There was a very near to a dive there on Sven Mackenberg. Now the two of them have saved enough fuel and they're fighting it out. Lapkowski, after hitting the inside wall and a source a few laps ago, has re-caught Mackenberg, and now he's got through. After that move, with a nice run onto the front straight, he's managed to make his way through. However, Mackenberg might well try and get back at him here. Let's see. He's not got a very good exit off of La Source, and this might be it for Lapkowski. He might be on his way to second place here. Let's see. Omu's up towards riding on now. I think Mackenberg is going to have to just resign to this one. Defensive position there from the McLaren. He's not going to have to actually defend, I don't think. Up towards Lecombe. He's got the position now, and by the looks of the pace, I think he'll be able to pull away.
You would assume so, considering he caught up that 4-second gap, but we didn't see if anything happened to Mackenberg regarding traffic or something like that. There is a car right behind them who's obviously a lap down on these guys, and it will now be up to Latkovsky to try and pull away. Otherwise, that Bentley is going to be sailing back past. But it does seem that maybe the McLaren in this middle sector is looking pretty decent indeed. So he's got just about half a lap to go before they get towards turn 1 again, which is where he needs to have that gap to defend from that. But 20 seconds behind Drovosekov, so overall you'd say this strategy probably hasn't worked out, and if he did the 2-stop he would probably be even closer, as we're getting a yellow in sector 2.
Well, yeah, it does beg the question though for Latkovsky, what could he have done if he had taken on the ordinary strategy, if you like? It might be Zabdir who's off here, although he's certainly losing. Yeah, he's lost a couple of places there, and now he loses out to Hoyt as well, or at least he's being challenged. Though I'm not entirely sure what's happened. There's Grunter, and there's side by side. Hoyt has managed to make his way through. He's on new tyres as well, of course, and was challenging for a podium a little bit earlier on. It's a big stretch for him to do it, but he might well get a top 5 here. So, yeah, something's happened to Zabdi. I don't know what's quite happened to him.
Yeah, Zabdi's an interesting one because he was having that battle, of course, with Mackenberg, but we did see maybe his tyres were starting to go off a little bit, and now he's lost a couple more places. I think that's definitely down to potentially the tyres just falling off, causing a couple of issues, but of course they'll all be struggling as we now hit 10 minutes to go. And actually Zabdir, yeah, I thought it's so. He's gone into the pit lane. I wonder, is that a drive-through for cut tracks or something like that? It's a bit of a weird time to come into the pit lane, or maybe he knows his tyres aren't getting to the end.
I don't think so. I think it's more to do with fuel, actually, because let's not forget, while he did go long in that first stint, he didn't go all the way to the halfway mark, so he might still require a few laps of fuel here. And he might drop outside the top 10 as a result as well. Hoyt is not too far behind right now, as Grunter is just up in front and going to try and hold on to the 6th position, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Here comes the McLaren. Although struggling in terms of straight line speed, that Bentley is quick. Outside line for Hoyt has been given the room, and he's going to make his way through. close, side by side. I was expecting him to just waltz on through here, actually, with the new tyres, but that's not been the case whatsoever. He's actually struggled to make this move, really, as they close in on one of the lap cars. And that might just play a factor in this battle, getting out the way nicely, though. And so they won't. Point, though, very close behind, and also needs to make good progress through traffic here if he wants to gain more places.
Yeah, certainly does in these places. Just going down to the last few laps now, as Drov-Sekov will be coming across the line about 8 minutes to go. So there's probably about 4 laps to go in this race after this lap that they're on now. Hoyt around the outside of Campers. We've seen this a couple of times before this race. It's a very good move if you can get to the inside, but he can't quite. Just too wide out on the dirtier part of the track, and was not able to complete that move, but for sure gave it a good go. But just at this point of the race on the old tyres, not enough grip.
Nope, not able to. He has to stay behind for now. And if he wants to get a top 5 here, needs to be a little bit more efficient once again. We've seen a number of drivers struggling to get through on these Bentleys, especially so far during this race, but 4 laps to do it still. And then to catch Mackenberg and get through once again. I don't think Kunz is going to catch Sven Mackenberg and get through, but Hoyt might well catch Marvin Mackenberg with that dive down the inside. That was impressive. It looks like he has made his way through as well on Grutter. The two of them very close. However, I think Hoyt made his way through. It just shows you what new tyres can do, though. How much later he broke there at the bus stop chicane was quite remarkable. And it does underline the tyre difference now between these two different sets of strategies.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's all coming to a close now with the different drivers on the different fuel, different tyres. Oh, there's a little bit close there between the back markers trying to both get out of the way of Drov-Sekov. A little bit lower down. I think that's a Troitus there. And maybe Vertrich, actually, that could be for position between those two drivers. P17, that one is for. So, yeah, Drov-Sekov lapping all the way up towards that one, which is pretty good for him, as they're having a nice battle. But Drov-Sekov here, 22 seconds in the lead ahead of Letkovsky. That gap slowly opening up a little bit more each lap, and really just in control of this race is the Swiss driver.
Yeah, he is. More than 20 seconds of an advantage. And this is the battle for 17th. There it is. Troitus versus Vertrich. The two of them fighting over 17th place, but 1 lap down here at this stage. So that's not ideal for them, but either way, it won't matter to them too much. Doesn't matter too much. Vertrich may be looking to the inside here, although it's going to be shown the outside by the Spaniard. And he doesn't decide to really go for it very heavily there. Maybe the exit off of the final corner and onto the straight for this move onto or into La Source, I should say. He's going to have to stay behind, although braking later once again, so maybe get another good exit. And maybe now this is the moment. It's a good exit off of La Source, and he's side by side through Aruja Radion, maybe. We haven't seen that all race so far, and it looks like that may well continue on, as Parvan has gone off the road in the final sector. By the looks of things, he loses a place up to Ared, but not too much. These two make their way over Radion, and Vutric is surely going to give it a go into Lecom, as these guys are also fighting a little bit further back. Parvan has dropped immediately into a fight here.
Yeah, this looks like a huge battle for the final places inside sort of the top 20, as it looks like Vertrich has got past there on the tower up into P17 as well, but Parvan included in this battle with Aren just ahead of him, also Hennig and Heusmann not too far up the road as well, still trying to work out where they are in the overall standings as everything comes to a close now inside the final 5 minutes of the race as well, as we're obviously seeing a couple of the drivers that just ahead of them. I think that's Letkovsky and Mackenberg is that battle for second place as well. So just so close with these drivers, and to be honest, it's pretty good that even after over almost 2.5 hours of running, we're only just seeing these guys getting lapped. Yeah,
we have seen a lot of cars remain on the lead lap. Still 16 remaining on the lead lap here at the moment. Just a fair amount. Letkovsky, though, should be able to hold on from Sven Mackenberg here. He's got a lap car in between himself and his rival now as well. So these two should be the final podiums spot drivers here in this race. And, well, we've talked already about Letkovsky and his possible disappointment. after going on this alternate strategy. It certainly has worked out for Sven Mackenberg, and he cannot be disappointed with his drive today.
Yeah, I think he probably feels the second place when missing though, but considering where he was in the first stint, sort of 8th, 9th place, I think it's worked out pretty well. And as you say, should be happy with the third place, but as a racing driver, there's always that disappointment on a place you might have been able to hold on to, because Lekowski hasn't, just railed off into the distance since he got that place.
No, he has made hard work of it, but finally now he's starting to put some distance between himself and third place. Now 3.5 minutes to go, so that means 2 laps to go, and it means we get 2 more laps of this fight. Marvin Mackenberg has been caught by Hood in the McLaren, and so are we going to see a change in the top spots here for the top 5? Mackenberg's going to hold on to it with all he's got. Hood is going to try and go through. He's got the new tyres, of course. He's got 2 laps to try and outpace this Bentley, which has proven quite difficult so far.
Yes, certainly has. Bentley's been good in the straight line, as you've always expected. Some people do call it the boat lead because it is a very big car indeed, even when you look at it compared to like the M6, which is said to be big as well. But the Bentley's certainly a little bit bigger, but it's still able to push through the air and hold on to these positions. But that is a bit of a bad exit out of the first corner there. They're getting a really good run up towards Eau Rouge and Radion, but once again, don't be too close. You've got to judge it to perfection to get the run, get the slingshot as we come up the hill over to the Kemmel Straight.
It's such a good run, and now he almost pulls out immediately through the little kink on the straight here, and then the Bentley starts to stretch its legs a little bit because of that straight line speed, and Hood has nowhere to go here. Does he go for a dive? Maybe not quite. We've seen audacious moves from him so far in this race, but this won't be one of them. Or will it? Inside line at Malmedy. He's going to try and stop his car down the inside there. The two of them make slight contact, but Marvin Mackenberg's run around the outside is enough to hold on to 5th place for the moment, although the McLaren's not giving up just yet.
Yeah, this is an amazing battle. Just a lap to go after this one, and they know this is really the time to make the moves. Mackenberg holding on well, but Wheat putting his car in every position he can. But Mackenberg has what it takes to hold on to this position, and it just looks like Wheat is going to be able to have just another go on the next lap, and that's going to be his last attempt potentially to try and get this move stuck. Round campus, we've seen this a few times. He hasn't been able to make a move though, but let's see this time around, all the way around the outside of campus. Does he go too wide again? Yes, he does, and Mackenberg able to come back.
There's almost nothing you can do when you're on the inside line of that move there at the campus chicane. However, when the driver overtaking you goes a bit too wide and invites you to go back through again, then you're not going to pass up the opportunity, certainly. So through again goes Marvin Mackenberg, and Hood's going to have to find another way through. Grutz is, by the way, gaining on these two as you'd expect, but I think he's going to run out of laps to really get involved. There's less than a minute to go. There's only 1 lap to go. It's all going to come down to Lecom on this next lap, I think.
Oh, it certainly is. And he's getting so close now into this final chicane round the outside. He's tried this a few times. He's got the newer tyres, but Marvin Mackenberg just getting his car to the inside there of the final corner, and that will be enough. But of course, last source, this is the important one. 35 seconds to go as they cross the line. So definitely the final lap of this race. Wheat going to the outside, trying to get him. He's diving to the inside instead, and that might put Mackenberg off as we come up the hill.
He's tried every which way he possibly can, and there's a big slide. He has to catch it, and Mackenberg almost lets him through, rolls out the red carpet for Hoyt there to go into 5th place. And now Christian Grotz is going to fancy his chances at maybe getting into 6th position here in this race as well. It's all falling apart for Mackenberg here on the final lap as Hoyt goes through into the top 5. Mackenberg might not even finish in the top 6 here. We're going to see Grunt maybe give it a go into Lecom, the two of them on the same strategy in terms of the cars, in terms of the tyres and the fuel situation right now. There's nothing to choose between them. They're going to go down to the line, these two. It's such a costly mistake there for Marvin Mackenberg at the first corner.
Oh, it certainly is, and I'm sure he's going to be ruining that one because, of course, it's not the place that he wants to do. But Drovosekov, of course, is inside the final sector as well, and he has just been so good in this race. 25 seconds in the lead, and it looks like he's going to be taking a nice victory here at the 2.4 hours of Spa.
Absolutely. It looks like he's going to take home his first victory in a longer special race here on RaceRoom here in 2022. Ilya Drobosakov for Belarus Esports comes over the line in that Corvette, and as he has done on so many of the previous 62 laps, he takes victory and crosses the line first here at the Spa 2.4 hours. It's a great victory for Drobosakov, who puts the results of the Spa 2 hours right, where he finished in second position, narrowly missing out to Cody Nikola Lepkowski. He's going to finish second. The roles are reversed on this occasion. It's Drobosakov followed by Lepkowski here today, although it's a decent drive from the McLaren considering where he came from during that race. Sven Mackenberg, with the different strategy, gets onto the podium, denying the likes of Kunz and Hoyt, who had to fight their way through in those latter laps. Marvin Mackenberger's Christian Grunt is the last battle inside the top 10 to really settle. It's going to go to Marvin Mackenberg ahead of the Norwegian. A very good race indeed, though. Thereafter, 62 laps of racing, it's Ilya Drobosakov this time ahead of Lepkowski in a reversal of the Bathurst 2-hour results earlier on this year.
Yeah, what a race that was in terms of the strategic options, and also even in that first stint, no one was taking it easy and everyone was just pushing to get that track position because it was so important, because that was a really close battle. All the drivers staying so close together and not really separating too much. As Mosin, who get 8th place in the end actually, so that's not as bad as it could have been, but I'm sure he would have wanted a little bit more from that race. Just ruined the mistake in the first stint, getting the drive-through penalty, and then there was certainly a mistake at some point in the last sort of 45 minutes of the race where he dropped down another 15-20 seconds or so. Botty there a little bit lower than he would have wanted as well, but just so competitive. And Vigneron now, and Lapinic's dropped down at some point as well, maybe making a final pit stop for a splash and dash, and Vigneron just going to be able to hold on as we come across the line for 12th and 13th place.
Yeah, Lapinic needed a splash and dash there, and he couldn't get back to the top 10. Guillaume Vigneron finishes 12th as Brown comes over the line as well. Pulasek, after not taking tyres in the first pit stop there, taking an early second pit stop and then going to the flag from there, finishes 15th, and he's going to be ahead of Grunig by quite a way by the end. This damaged Corvette also comes across the line. Not sure which one that is, Grab or Hebel coming over the line, although not sure which. But Ilya Drobosakov takes the race victory from Lepkowski. Sven Mackenberg gets up inside the top 3 with that podium place. Kunz and Hoyt rounding out the top 5. Mackenberg 6th ahead of Grunt, who was the biggest mover inside the top 10. It was Mosin, Zabdir and Castanera rounding out your top 10. A great race from all of those guys. Alessandro Botti drops out of it, and so does the likes of Lapinic, Vigneron between them. Brown and Pulasek were the final cars on the lead lap. Then it was Grunig, Vertrich, Troitas, Heusemann and Hennig rounding out your top 20. And then we really are getting to some of the drivers who have had some problems throughout the day outside of the top 20 there in that race. But yeah, another very entertaining one indeed. Aaron finishes just outside of it, with Parvan involved in much of the battling. Giordano in 23rd ahead of D'Amico. Paikalainen was 25th, and Dollimore, Hebel and Burkhardt the final drivers to get to the line. Sebastian Rea did not, along with the likes of Meyer, Kulas, of course, as well. Also did not get to the line with disqualification. Kaspering disconnected, and Rebello also did not get to the line. A very entertaining Spa 2.4 hours though there, Cam, and I'm sure we'll be very much looking forward to the next special event and special race here at RaceRoom, if it's anything like this. Some surprises for us today. Maybe not with the result and the race winner, but further down the field certainly, and indeed with the strategies that they employed. I was very surprised to see.
Yes, quite funny when you see the top sort of 3 out of the top 4 there not moving a position during the race, and of course Mayer should be there in 3rd place as well to sort that one out. But there was so much action up and down the field, all the different strategies. It just all came back together in that final 20 minutes or so, and that's just the type of racing we get here on RaceRoom, of course. And the ranked championship season 2 is going to be announced shortly as well. So yeah, just loads of things coming. It's looking really good.
Absolutely is. That is just about going to do us, though, for this stream here tonight. I very much hope you've enjoyed it at home. Very interested to see Sven Bakkenberg just jumping in the YouTube chat very briefly before we end, just saying that he's not sure whether to be pleased or disappointed. The strategy for sure worked for him, but he feels like Ilya Drobosnikov may have been beatable today. Well, on the day, it was Ilya Drobosnikov who took that race victory, of course. Just to remind you guys, as Cam just mentioned there, the Ranked Championship Season 2 is coming. Registration will be open soon, and there will be an official announcement very, very soon. Keep an eye on Discord and social media for that announcement, and get yourself signed up when it is possible. And of course, to remind you that Donington has just been released this week here on RaceRoom. There is an update to it coming up over this week here as well very soon. So make sure you look out for that as well. It's my home circuit, so what more encouragement do you need to go and drive it? It's a fantastic circuit indeed. So make sure you go and get that and have fun with Donington Park, newly released here on RaceRoom. That is just about going to do us, though, for the stream here tonight. This has been the 2022 RaceRoom Spa 2.4 hours. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Cam Roger. And until next time here at RaceRoom, it's goodbye for now.